Hi, I'm Virginia,
And I'm Bianca.
and we are the identical twins from the dying movie race. And we are, as per last week, we talked about who we would pick to win Best Actor for all the classic Hollywood era, and now we're picking who we would pick to win Best Actress.
Also, as a random side note, it's our birthday. We share one with Ronald Coleman, and we're proud to do so.
A lot of other people, Carmen Miranda, Catherine Grace,
Ryan Dunleavy.
Heather Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, good ones.
Yep. Okay, so if we were born just a day earlier, we would have shared it with James Dean and King Vidor. But yeah.
And Lana Turner.
Oh, that's big ones. Yeah. But we are very happy with this date, especially since today's a Friday. All right. So my prediction for this is we are going to pick. We are probably last week we definitely disagreed a little bit, but we had a lot of the same ones, and we also picked a good bit of the winners the Oscars themselves picked. I think we're going to be a little more different this time. I don't think we're going to agree so much with the Oscars, and we're probably going to have some different opinions too. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. That's all you're going to add. Okay.
No, I don't. SNL reference.
Yeah.
If any of you watch it.
I'm sure they do. Okay. So first year, Best Actress. Here we go.
The nominees are Louise Dresser for Ship Comes In, Janet Gaynor for Seventh Heaven, Street Angel, and Sunrise, and Gloria Swanson for Sadie Thompson. So Janet Gaynor is the only one nominated for more than one, and she was the winner, and she's the one I would pick. She kind of has an advantage of being nominated for 3 rather than just one. Because obviously the other ladies are great actresses, but Janet Gaynor, all 3 of them are very wonderful pictures and very wonderful performances. And they all are kind of that sweet, innocent waif that she was always playing at this era. But obviously she did it well. I mean, this is what made her famous, justly so. And she's just so poetic and heartbreaking in these portrayals of these sort of innocent, lost young women.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. And again, like you say, it's pretty unfair because she's nominated for 3 performances while the other actresses were nominated for 1. But in all 3, she's fantastic. I mean, and so first of all, her chemistry with her leading men is she has Charles Farrell in 2 of them, her best match co-star.
Absolutely. We call them Fairnor.
Yeah, we gave him a celebrity couple name because we are lame. And there's also, and with George O'Brien, and she does a great job complimenting them in all 3 movies. She has to be hopelessly in love with them throughout the whole thing, and it's never to the point where it's over the top. She keeps it, even when the film itself Sunrise doesn't do this, but the other 2 do, where they can be a little more melodramatic than necessary. She has a way of leveling it out, and she never goes over the top with it. Even though the script can more than call for it, she doesn't. She definitely keeps it sane, and she makes you really root for her, and I think that's obviously what these films were going for, and she more than makes up for that.
Okay, the next year we have Ruth Chatterton for Madam X, Betty Compson for The Barker, Jean Eagles for The Letter, Corinne Griffith for The Divine Lady, Bessie Love for The Broadway Melody, and Mary Pickford for Coquette. A lot of early talkies, except for one of them. So, and guess which one I'm picking? But Mary Pickford won, and it's really not the Mary we know. She really shouldn't have won. I don't even think she should have been nominated. Yeah. She's really doing an impression of Helen Hayes, who originated that role, and it made me just really wish I was watching Helen Hayes. I mean, this is...
Me too.
Yeah, this is a role that really suits Helen Hayes and really doesn't suit Mary Pickford at all. The innocent charm that makes us love Mary Pickford is missing from this film.
Yeah.
I mean, it does have some pretty interesting things from the direction.
Yeah, from an early talkie standpoint, the actual film itself is kind of ahead of its time in some ways. I mean, it's not like it's not like hallelujah or applause, but it still looks, I mean, because it came directly from the stage, it looks it definitely is a little more cinematic than pretty much every other like stage production at this time that was moved to film.
Yeah, like the one melodramatic shooting scene, you just hear it. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But obviously the one I'm going to pick would be Corinne Griffith. And Corinne Griffith isn't really, when we think about her, we don't think actress. We think more star. She's a movie star. She's beautiful. But if you see this film, it's really a whole different side of her. She's kind of the orchid lady of the films, as they would often call her. Always in these melodramatic roles, kind of like a Norman Talmadge. In this film, first of all, it's gloriously directed. I mean, Frank Lloyd more than deserved his Oscar. He is one of the pinnacles of early talkie cinema and late silent cinema when it comes to direction. So it's a beautiful film as it is, but I think just what makes the film just so heartbreaking is her portrayal of Lady Hamilton, which is a story done many times, but Corinne Griffith makes it her own, and it's really something special.
I'm going to agree. I'm picking Corinne too. And like you said, she's like the one silent performance this year, and oh boy, it's just because, I mean, a lot of these actresses some of them are very good actresses, but it did take them some time to get the hang of talkies, and a lot of these actresses were already on their way out when this happened. And a lot of them were a little melodramatic, or couldn't necessarily talk, or at least today they seem dated, but having one performance that's a silent film really is really a standout, because and so to me it is the best performance out of the nominees, because it's the one that ages the best, it's the one that looks the best, it's compared to everyone else that's nominated, it's the better one. And it's too bad more silent film actresses weren't nominated. Apparently Lillian Gish's work in The Wind just wasn't worth mentioning, but whatever. We had to nominate all these early talkie performances, but anyway, Corinne Griffith in the Divine Lady, I agree with you. She is more of a beauty than an actress, but she definitely gives the role what it needs, because it definitely needs this sense of class and elegance that she more than has. And she has, even like in her love scenes, she's never lusty. She's always very elegant, and that is something that's really appreciated. And because I feel like today, especially today, when you see like a costumer, everybody's lusty and over the top. No, Corinne is, you always get the sense she's a lady. Yeah. She is the Divine Lady, and she's charming. I mean, she's really charming in it. So I definitely think it's the better age performance out of all the nominees.
It's also the best film of the nominees.
Oh yeah, no problem, no doubt.
Very sensitive, well-told film.
Yep.
1929 to 1930, we have Nancy Carroll for Devil's Holiday, Ruth Chatterton for Sarah and Son, Greta Garbo for Anna Christie and Romance, Norma Shearer for The Divorcee, which she won for, and Their Own Desire, and Gloria Swanson for The Trespasser. And this year you could win for one if you were nominated for two and not both of them. So, I'm going to go, obviously, with Norma Shearer, because she's my favorite actress. And I think a lot of people will look at this and be like, oh, it's just a regular pre-code. But you have to realize that at the time, this was a very new performance. Women like this women weren't portrayed in this way on the screen. And Norma Shearer really goes through this transformation of sophisticated yet refined. I mean, this refined woman of society to this woman of sin. And she doesn't go over the top like, look at me, I'm sexy. You know, she uses body language and subtle gestures to show it. And this really proved that Norma Shearer could be sexy, because she was a great actress before then, and pretty, but this made her be the woman of pre-code. This is what made pre-code what it was, and we have Norma Shearer to thank for that. So Norma Shearer really put this role into the film canon.
I will agree. I'll pick Norma Shearer for this year as well.
Yay!
uh, and this is one of those years where it is kind of difficult to pick because all the performances tend to have a lot of the similar strengths and weaknesses, especially since they're all dramatic performances and they're usually in pre-code melodramas, which have a lot of the same. I guess you could almost say at this point in time, at least, they had a lot of the similar early talkie issues and early talking performance problems. And it wasn't just actresses; this was the case with actors too. And you'll notice in a divorcee, like Norma Shearer could be dramatic at times, but so could the other actors, and like clearly all the actors were still finding their footing with talkies. And I do think Norma Shearer gave better performances later on, like in Smiling Through, for instance. But I do think that I do pick this performance this year because she has more to do because the other performances are more dramatic. Like, this is a year that, yeah, you could pick Greta Garbo for Anna Christie, but she is that is a bit more of a dramatic performance and a very, one that relies on just a lot of melodrama, where the divorcee, she gets to be a little bit lighter and she gets to show a little more diversity, which is a welcome presence for a film at this time, especially in this category, because we haven't seen a lot of that. She was also nominated for a good performance in Their Own Desire, but again, that one is also more dramatic and doesn't have as many little moments of lightheartedness that you get in the divorcee, so it's a more versatile performance than pretty much the other performances this year. That's not the fault of the actresses, that's more the faults of like the plots and the scripts. And some of these are good movies. You should see Anna Christie, but this one ages a little better, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. For 1930 to 1931, we have Marlene Dietrich in Morocco, Marie Dressler in Min and Bill, Irene Dunne in Cimarron, Anne Harding in Holiday, and Norma Shearer in A Free Soul. Okay, so the winner was Marie Dressler, and we said before, people can't say anything bad about Marie Dressler, and we're not going to either, because we can't. I can't think of anything. And for Min and Bill, Marie Dressler has to be both comedic, which she was very good at, and just be comedic and melodramatic. And it's again one of those sacrificing mother roles that a lot of actresses were being nominated for and winning at the time. But she really adds sincerity to it, and makes it not just dramatic, but also she has these little comedic moments spurts throughout too. Especially with Wallace Beery, they have remarkable chemistry. So it's a lot of fun seeing that, as well as seeing her dramatic moments that she's really good at. You know, she's known as a big comedic actress, but she's also very good at drama.
I too am gonna pick the winner, Marie Dressler, and so this is, like you said, it's a performance that has both comedy and drama in it. It is a comedy drama, and the drama is usually pretty high melodrama, and the comedy is pretty like lowbrow comedy. So she could have been silly in the comedy, which would have made the dramatic moments not work, because the movie would have been completely uneven and it would have just been unwatchable. But it's not like that at all, because Marie Dressler sells the fact that, you know, this character can be both funny and also deal with the serious issues that she's going through, and show care for, you know, these characters that she has, both Wallace Beery's character and the daughter that she grows up to raise. Like, she's like, that means so much to her, but obviously she may not wear that on her sleeve all the time. And it is a part, and Marie Dressler is definitely a classic scene stealer, so it's nice that she became a star, because when in her films beforehand, if she was like in a supporting role or even just in one scene, she tended to like walk away with the movie. So making her into a star was definitely a good idea, and this is another reason why, because it just shows what she is able to do and how she is able to make something that can be lowbrow comedy but also high melodrama and make it come together in a way that is pretty enjoyable to watch.
It's also very unglamorous, which is interesting.
Yes, especially for MGM.
Absolutely. Okay, so for 1931 to 1932, only 3 nominees: Marie Dressler for Emma, Lynn Fontaine for The Guardsman, and Helen Hayes for The Sin of Madeline Claudet. And Helen Hayes won. And once again, I'm going to go with the winner. And I know this is kind of
it will be different down the road. These early years aren't too difficult.
yeah. I mean, they did a good job picking the person who should have won at around this time. Helen Hayes again plays this dramatic, kind of like Marie Dressler, just dramatic Madam X sort of role. And like I said, I do have a soft spot for these because they are good showcases for great women talent. And this one is an incredibly pre-code one in particular. It's also very heartbreaking in just the right spots, and Helen Hayes gives it as much dignity as this kind of story could possibly have. She is it's kind of like also like Norma Shearer. She has to go from this innocent woman to this wayward girl, except in a much darker sense, because you have to see her be a girl in love to essentially, a prostitute, and a old, haggard, pessimistic woman. So it's an interesting transformation, especially for such a young, vibrant actress. And Helen Hayes is obviously a wonderful actress. Nobody will deny that. And so it's great to see her have these kind of parts that she made famous on stage in a movie.
Yeah, I agree. The winner deserved it this year. It is a highly dramatic role to play. Again, it's a Madam X role, but in a different telling of it. So we see her go from this nice young girl into a aged prostitute in a short amount of time, and she has to and again, with the length at the time, like what I was saying with the divorcee, you have to convey so much in such a little time and make it believable, and Helen Hayes can do that easily. She definitely never goes over the top. She always is very well within, but yet she's well within the film's world and the tone it sets. She knows what she's doing. It's a performance that an actress can easily take over the top, and I never feel she does that with this, and it would have been so easy, especially later on in the film when she really is down on her luck. And there are certain little dramatic moments in this that do stick in your mind that because of her, like when the scene where she gives birth to her son and she doesn't even want to see him. I remember that scene, and I saw this movie years ago. I don't think I've seen it since then, and I still remember it. It's not one of those films I saw and then I have to think back about like, oh yeah, this happened. No, I remember it, and she's a whole movie, so that says something.
There's also the scene with Lewis Stone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great scene. Okay, 1932 to 1933. We have 3 nominees again. Katharine Hepburn, who won for Morning Glory, May Robeson for Lady for a Day, and Diana Wynyard for Cavalcade. Okay, so well, Katharine Hepburn is very good, but I think May Robeson inches her out just a little bit. I think this is again, very Marie Dressler, but in a most delightful way, like Marie Dressler. And again, she's an older actress, and she has to be both funny and serious, and oh boy, does she do it. This is not only a great film, it really rides on a great performance from the lead, which is May Robeson, and you normally don't see actresses of this age having leads like this, so it's not only refreshing, but she more than steps up to the challenge, and she played a lot of roles like this, much to our delight, because she did so well in this role, and she is just such a like foul-mouthed like dowager, and so it's just really funny, and yet also really sad because she has this daughter she's trying to impress by looking like a lady. So again, you see this big transformation, and she makes it really believable.
I'm going to completely agree with you. I'm also picking May Robeson again. Kate the Great is always great, but I think she's been better in other things. In other performances of her stand out more than Morning Glory does. And Diana Wynyard is also a brilliant actress, and I just, again, the character she plays in Cavalcade doesn't age very well.
Agreed.
Yeah. she's fine in it. Can't I can't really root for the family in that movie. But anyway, so May Robeson, this character could have easily been a caricature or a cartoon, and it's not. It's definitely, out of the three nominees, it's the performance that could have been the most cheesy and the most ridiculous and the most taken advantage of, and it's not, because May Robeson knows she's both funny and she's both good in the serious moments, and you follow with her, even though, and again, like you said, she's so crotchety and off-putting, but there's also something about her that you like, and that you are willing to stick with her for the whole ride, and you really want to see her succeed, and the whole movie relies on you rooting for this character, and she's so, and even, despite her nastiness, she's so delightful that you do root for her, and that you do like the transition she goes through, and you do see why all these characters want to help her. And if she wasn't convincing, then you'd be like, oh, why is everybody taking all this time to help her, or why should anybody help her? But it's not like that at all. She's great.
Okay, 1933 to 1934. For actresses, we have Claudia Colbert, who won for It Happened One Night, Grace Moore for One Night of Love, and Norma Shear for The Bear to Wimpole. Talk about three ladies I admire so much. And I have to completely agree with the winner. Like I said last week, this is my favorite movie, and I would build a shrine to Claudia Colbert. She's that amazing. This is the romantic comedy performance from a lady. There have been a lot of imitations, but no one can compare to Claudia Colbert. She's hilarious. There's so many great scenes made extra special because of her comic timing and the naivete of her character. And yet are these little moments where she does have to be dramatic. I mean, they're quick moments, but oh boy, is she effective. 1934 was a great year for Claudia Colbert, and this is the pinnacle of it. Yeah. This is probably the best she's ever been, which is really saying something. And I just enjoy watching this performance all the time. She and Clark Gable, this is such a great movie because of the both of them. It's not just the script, it's not just the direction, it's really them that pull this movie through and make it from just a regular romantic comedy to something extra special.
I too have to totally agree with the winner on this one, and again, you can't pick Clark Gable to win and not pick Claudia Colbert to win, and vice versa, because they both complement each other so well. And I think, and as we were saying, how great Claudia Colbert is one of those very few actresses who could do anything. You can give her any part, and she's fantastic. And she has what we refer to as, like, I guess you can call it the Cary Grant spark, where she's one of those actresses that just by being in something, she makes it better, which we often say about Cary Grant, so we'll call it the Cary Grant spark. She has that with her. She could bring her talent to anything and make it just way more enjoyable to watch, and you won't notice the flaws so much. She's one of those actresses. But this is a great script, great direction, just a great film that she's in, and she pulls it off with gusto, as you can imagine. And again, she's funny. She's really funny. The scene where she has to pretend to be Clark Gable's wife is hilarious, and she puts on a voice and it's funny. And how she has to, and Clark Gable's character goes through development too. She does so a lot too. How she has to be this bratty Harris who becomes more down to earth as the film moves along, as she's moving across the country, and as she gets closer to Clark Gable's character. And it could have been sappy if you're a eccentric Capricorn, if the actress and the actor weren't believable. Both are, and I mean, Claudia Colbert is just always something special, and this is her at her best, and that is saying something. I mean, she's, again, amazing in everything, so her at her best is as good as something can get.
If you can't tell, we like Claudia Colbert.
I think we made that clear.
Okay, 1935, we have Elizabeth Bergner, for Escape Me Never, and I knew that, but Claudia Colbert for Private World, Betty Davis for Dangerous, Katharine Hepburn for Alice Adams, Miriam Hopkins for Becky Sharp, and Merle Oberon for The Dark Angel. Now, this is a year I think Katharine Hepburn should have won. The real winner was Betty Davis, but a lot of people assume that she won because she was a writing candidate for 1934 for her performance in Of Human Bondage.
Yeah, a lot of people thought she was gonna win Claudette forever, but yeah.
Of course, Team Claudette forever. But so she won this year, and Dangerous is a pretty good film, actually. I think a lot of people overlook it for that reason. And it's a good performance, but Katharine Hepburn and Alice Adams, that is an excellent movie. It's one I could watch over and over and over again. And normally, I guess it's a pretty dramatic film. And normally, I guess movies like this I wouldn't watch over and over again. But this one is really something special. And her playing this character, you just love this girl. I mean, you feel for her every step of the way. And she just so wants to fit in. You just feel that angst, and it's well-deserved angst. That one scene where after she comes home from the party and she acts like she had the best time of her life for her parents just so that they could be happy, and then she goes in her room and cries right away. That scene makes me cry every time I watch it, just from that, just because she loves her parents so much, that she'll fake it for them. She doesn't want them to feel bad, even though it's their fault that she's looked down upon in this town, but she only cries when she's alone. So it's really that moment plus many others, the infamous dinner party scene. I mean, I can go on and on. There's so many great moments of this character brought by the great Kate.
I know it's kind of boring when we agree, but I also gotta pick Katharine Hepburn this year, and for a lot of the reasons you said, it's a good performance, and it's one of those performances where the problems she's going through are relatable, but you could have almost scoffed at them and been like, oh, well, you know, you're not going hungry, or what's your problem? But it's not like that, because she plays her in such a way that you do feel bad for her, and that you're like, oh, well, these are human problems, and it does make sense to feel bad about them. And it is one of those movies, and the whole film revolves around her, and it is one of those movies that when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that was pretty nice, and then I ended up watching it every time I came on. Like, I was like, oh yeah, and I'll put Alice Adams on, I'll put it on, and yeah, it's just one of those things that has, I think, more of an effect on you than you realize, because you do find yourself going back to it, even though it could have been this basic, you know, romantic movie, and it's not really like that. It has a little bit more impact than that. And so much of that is just because, again, her performance is good and she sells you on it. She sells you on the problems she's going through, and you do want to see something good happen to her character. And the fact that she does try to make it look like these things don't bother her when they really do bother her, and it makes sense that they do. So it's a good performance, and the whole movie, in order for the movie to work, it relies on this performance. If the performance was okay, or just played by an actress who's pretty good, when it worked. So the fact that we have, like, arguably the best actress ever, you know, front and center here makes a world of difference.
1936. We have Irene Dunne for Theodore Goes Wild. Gladys George for Valiant is the word for Carrie. Carol Lombard for My Man Godfrey. The winner, Louise Rayner for The Great Ziegfeld. And Norma Shear for Romeo and Juliet. And those are 5 amazing actresses. And a lot of variety here compared to the other years. Personally, I will go with Irene Dunne for Theodore Goes Wild. This is one of the essential screwball roles. This is what made Irene Dunne a comedic actress, the actress that we know her as today. And it's a really, really, really damn funny movie to start it off. So it's a lot of fun. Again, it's another transformation movie, and it's just a delight to see her go from this meek, small-town girl who writes these scandalous books to the author everybody thinks she is, this eccentric woman. And so this really did put Irene Dunne, made her a queen of screwball, and I mean, can we not imagine her as anything else? This is our Irene Dunne. This is Irene Dunne at her absolute best.
So this year I'm between Irene Dunne for Theodore Goes Wild and Carol Lombard for My Man Godfrey. 2 screwball performances, classic screwball performances, and two actresses who were in like these sentimental weepies before being in these movies. And I am so glad they, made this transition, because this is the stuff they were born to make. Again, it's so difficult to pick between the two of them, because even though they are both screwball performances, they are very different performances. But I'm just gonna pick Carol Lombard for the sake that we don't pick the same performance again. And okay, so this performance is hilarious. Oh my gosh, so funny. I just remember when I first saw it, I remember just thinking, wow, she is hilarious. I think it was the first time I saw her in anything. I think it's most people's introduction to her. And it's a performance that is goofy and silly, but you also, while she is silly, you have to root for her to be with Godfrey. And if she was like completely like an airhead, you wouldn't care. You'd say, oh, okay, whatever, I don't care what happens to these people. But you do, because she's also adorable. Even though she's silly and she does these things that don't make much sense, because she thinks that, oh, Godfrey will be my protege and he's my butler, and oh, if he puts me in the shower, that means he loves me. And I think it's also because it's a performance I can't imagine anyone else playing, because like all the great screwball actresses, they couldn't play this part. This is only a Carol Lombard part, and I think that's what sets it apart, because there are so many great screwball performances, but a lot of them, like, even though a lot of other screwball actresses had that part, it wouldn't be as good. You could still see them wanting to cast somebody else for that performance. I can't even picture who the studio would want to cast over Carol Lombard for this, because nobody else can do this, and I can't picture anybody else doing it.
Godfrey loves me. He put me in the shower. 1937. We have another 5 great performances. We have Irene Dunne for The Awful Truth, Greta Garbo for Camille, Janet Gaynor for A Star is Born, the winner, Louise Rayner, for The Good Earth, and Barbara Stanwyck for Stella Dallas. And Barbara Stanwyck was called the best actress who never won an Oscar, and I think she should have won this year. Again, this is another Sacrificing Mother story. Oh my love, I love these movies. Those were so-called women's pictures. And this is one of the best of the bunch. It's, again, something that could have been so over the top under lesser actresses, under less competent hands, but boy, does Barbara Stanwyck make this one of the great weepies of all time. I blubbered like a baby when I first saw this, because of that final scene with her. She has such energy, such vibrance as this character Stella Dallas, who doesn't fit into society, even though she wants to, and yet she doesn't, because she won't sacrifice who she is, but she'll do anything for her daughter. And so it's just such a splendid adaptation of this tale, and it was done before, but I think this is the best version, and it's because of Barbara Stanwyck. This movie would be, nobody would even look twice if it was if this performance wasn't great, and under Barbara Stanwyck's guidance, any performance is good. Any performance is amazing.
So this year is tough. Oh my gosh, those are very good performances, and they're very different from each other. And yeah, great movies. I do, part of me really wants to pick Irene Dunne for The Awful Truth, but I would feel like feel like kind of a crime if I didn't pick Greta Garbo for Camille. Mainly, Greta Garbo was considered the other actress who's the best actress to never win an Oscar, which is insane. I think if a certain movie didn't come out in 1939, she should have easily won for an Oscar, which is my favorite performance from her. But yeah, yours too, yeah. But Camille is her most iconic performance, and I think that because the movie is so dramatic and it is so, torrid and so, oh my gosh, people are dying and it's so sad. I think that if the main actress wasn't so appealing, the movie would be like, oh my gosh, can this be over by now? But again, thanks to MGM production values and Greta Garbo at the head, you don't think that watching it. When I saw this movie, I wasn't like, oh my god, die already, can this movie be over? I wasn't like that. I didn't want her to die. I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. And and also, this is Garbo's movie because everybody else in this movie fades into the background. I feel like I guess that's what set. Maybe that's why I'm picking this performance, because in the other ones I feel like they are very strongly supported and they do play back upon their co-stars, which is wonderful, and I like that. I want that. But with this movie where she really is the star, she has to put everyone in the background, and she does. I don't really. This is one of those movies when I think back to it, I'm like, oh yeah, that person was in this, because I don't remember them in this. I only remember Garbo, because I'm like, oh yeah, Lionel Barrymore played Robert Taylor's dad. I barely remember that. And I remember Lionel Barrymore in everything, but I don't remember him in this. And like, oh, like, it's just one of those type of movies where I'm always like, I'll see a picture of somebody and I'll be like, oh, yeah. Didn't really catch on to that, because I was only paying attention to Garbo.
1938, we have Faye Banter for White Banners, Betty Davis for Jezebel, Wendy Hiller for Pygmalion, Norma Shearer for Marie Antoinette, and Margaret Sullivan for Three Comrades. Oh, and Betty Davis won for Jezebel. And I love Jezebel, but I have to choose, again, Norma Shearer for Marie Antoinette. This is another movie I cried like a baby during. It's not an excellent movie. It has a lot of effort put into it, and my goodness, is it a gorgeous movie to look at. And it's better than the remake done in 2008, I think, because it actually shows the hard to watch parts. The death, yeah, exactly, the best part, her death. It really goes there, and that's why I have to pick Norma Shearer for this, because that scene of her in when she's captured, all those scenes are just completely heartbreaking, and it really takes a good actress. This movie would be a bore if it wasn't for an excellent actress like Norma Shearer. The scene where they take her son away is one of those scenes that sticks in my mind. Every time I think of the greatness that is Norma Shearer, I think of that scene, along with many others, but that's one of the main scenes I will think of. When she's fighting to keep her son, she's begging with them. She's saying, I won't let them take you, I won't let them take you, and it makes me want to cry just talking about it. This is just what makes a great actress, being able to just make you go like, ugh, at a scene like that, and really care about this woman who history has been rather unkind to.
So yeah, all good actresses this year nominated, all good performances this year. And again, Betty Davis is phenomenal in Jezebel, but I also have to go with somebody else. I'm going with Wendy Hiller for Pygmalion. That was your runner-up. I figured it would be, yeah. I figured you were picking Norma Shearer, but I was like, it's hard to believe that you also want to pick Wendy Hiller, because she's so good in this, and we talk about it a lot. But yeah, it could be because I don't know what Julie Andrews did in the stage version of My Fair Lady, which people raved about, but I wish I could have seen it too. But from what I have to go on, this is the Eliza Doolittle performance, and it's also one where she's funny and she's also pretty serious at times, but she has to earn those serious moments, and she does, because it's another transition movie where she does have to make this transition, and she has to go from being comical to being a lady and being respected, but still having that throwback of comedy. And also, I feel, because we both picked Leslie Howard to win this year, and it is one of those performances, it is one of those things where I feel, picking Leslie Howard, you also gotta pick Wendy Hiller, because, again, the way they complement each other, and the way they play off each other, and how it's really both of their movies. While it's not one of those performances walks away with it, they both really are there for each other throughout the whole thing, and how it's just, in their scenes together are so amusing to watch. And it's so funny, and it's just, and I think that it's, to me, I can't picture somebody playing this part better than her. And I feel like, because I've seen this is the type of part a lot of actresses want to play, and they like to play, and I can see why it's a fun part, but I just think she's the one to beat. She's so good at it, and it's supposed to be a fun part, and it's supposed to be, but one that earns its dramatic moments, and Wendy Hiller can do that.
Now we're at the famous 1939 year, and the nominees are Bette Davis for Dark Victory, Irene Dunne for Love Affair, Greta Garbo for Ninotchka, Greer Garson for Goodbye Mr. Chips, and Vivien Leigh for Gone with the Wind, who won. I think they chose the right winner. I mean, obviously these are all fantastic movies, and these are all fantastic performances, and I love all of these actresses. But what Vivien Leigh does in Gone with the Wind is very special. This is quite a flawed movie, even though it's one of the greatest movies ever made. It comes with its flaws, because one can naturally expect that from such a big, long movie. It does, and especially a dated one. But this movie is where it is because of Vivien Leigh, I think. And obviously the direction, the scenes, they really add to it. But if you had to pick one performance of this movie that really justifies this movie's fame, it's Vivien Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara. Has there ever been a character that is more bratty and almost unlikable, and yet you like her? I really can't think of one. This woman goes to hell and back, and she's not a nice woman at first. She's spoiled, she's arrogant, she treats everyone around her like they're lower than dirt, even nice Melanie, who just wants to be your friend. And yet you like her because she has this spirit that women when you think of the Southern Belle, they don't have that. They're these women that are supposed to sit and wait. Scarlett O'Hara doesn't do that. She goes out and gets what she wants. And I think just Vivien Leigh is probably, there are a lot of actresses that auditioned for this role, but I don't think any of them could really give the depth to Scarlett O'Hara that Vivien Leigh did. She's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I do love the other nominees, and like I said, Greta Garbo and Ninotchka, I love Irene Dunne in Love Affair, what could have been a soapy part never in her hand. She's brilliant in it, but I mean, let's face it, it's Vivien Leigh's year. It just is, and it would almost be like blasphemous to pick somebody else just because. And I agree with Bianca. I do find this film overrated. I mean, I'm not like, and even though it's one that I enjoy watching and I've seen a lot of times. Yeah, I can watch so many times. I do notice its flaws, and I do cringe a little at some of the moments in it, especially the race issue in it, which doesn't age well at all, and it shouldn't have been okay then either. But yeah, well, it is. But I think it's a type of performance that it has to stand apart from everything else, and it has to be the best thing about the movie, because the character wouldn't accept anything less. And like you said, so many actresses auditioned for this part, and there were runner-ups that you're like, oh yeah, they would have been pretty good in it, but I don't think anybody would have been better. I don't think anybody would have been as good. I think this performance in Vivien Leigh's hands is as good as it can be. And I think that's why not many people have wanted to do it again. Nobody wants to go through a remake of Gone with the Wind saying, oh, that movie had a lot of flaws, I think we could do it better. Because no, you can't get somebody else to play Scarlett O'Hara. It is such a complex part. It's a part that, again, she is like antagonistic and bratty, and you do want to slap her throughout the whole movie and say, oh my gosh, don't do that. But she feels sincere in Vivien Leigh's hands. She doesn't feel like this book character that doesn't like have any grip or any tangible aspects to her. No, she feels real in Vivien Leigh's hands, and there's a reason. I think this film is such a classic because of her, probably the production and like how good it looks, and she is the best performance in the movie, so she deserves the Oscar.
Okay, 1940, we get to the 40s. We have Betty Davis in The Letter, Joan Fontaine in Rebecca, Katharine Hepburn in The Philadelphia Story, Ginger Rogers in Kitty Foyle, and Martha Scott in Our Town. And Ginger Rogers was the winner for Kitty Foyle. But I'm going to go with Joan Fontaine for Rebecca. This probably isn't very shocking to Virginia because Rebecca's one of my favorite movies. It's also one of my favorite books. Especially after reading the book, I realized just how much Joan Fontaine fits this character like a glove. She's such a meek little thing, and she doesn't have the will to stand up for herself a lot of the time when you wish she did. But with Joan Fontaine, Joan Fontaine's a beautiful woman. Every time I see her like play like parts that are supposed to be like these plain Janes, I'm like, I think Joan Fontaine is one of the most beautiful women. But she really makes you believe that she's these, because she portrays such a lack of confidence, which is what really puts it over. And so she just, you really do, I felt like this was the perfect portrayal of this character. I don't think anyone else could have done it quite like this. And again, there are some screen tests for this, like Margaret Sullivan auditioned for, and I think she would have been very good. But Joan Fontaine is just so youthful, looks so inexperienced. I mean, not acting wise, I mean character wise, that you just really want to take her into your arms and help her. And so it just makes this movie even better.
Yeah, this is one of those years where one day I feel like I'll pick Katharine Hepburn for The Philadelphia Story, the next day I'll pick Joan Fontaine with Rebecca and rinse and repeat, and because I think it's difficult to pick between the two of them, in my opinion. And I was planning on picking Katharine Hepburn for The Philadelphia Story, but when I was thinking about Rebecca, I was like, I do think I have to go with Joan Fontaine. I do. I think I do, because it's this is the part that like launched her to stardom, and it's cemented like the type of career she would have. Like a lot of her best roles, even though they're not, I wouldn't say they're the same type of role, she does tend to play these meek, quiet characters who aren't necessarily supposed to be pretty, and like Bianca said, it's kind of shocking because she is so beautiful, Joan Fontaine. But because she plays them so well, you're like, you go along with it, even though you're like, oh well, who wouldn't notice her? Like, because I remember in my best picture review or my blog post when I was talking about the best picture winners, I said, oh, how beautiful did Rebecca have to be prettier than Joan Fontaine, to be where everybody's like, oh, look how mousy and dowdy she is. Like, I don't know what that would look like, but again, but the performance works, and you understand why she was chosen, because she's so good in it. Because she seems uncomfortable all the time, and she seems nervous, and like just you feel like she's going to just break down and cry any minute, and you wouldn't blame her, because you'd be like, I would have cried like 20 times by now. This is uncomfortable. But it's exactly the tone the film was going for, and it's exactly how the way the character should be played, and it makes you sympathize with her, and it makes you side with her and what her husband end up going through in the film. And you do end up, wanting to see everything turn out okay for her, even though it seems like the cards are stacked against her as the film is moving along. And it's an uncomfortable yet charming performance.
Okay, 1941. We have Betty Davis for The Little Foxes, Livy de Havilland for Hold Back the Dawn, the winner, Joan Fontaine for Suspicion, Greer Garson for Blossoms in the Dust, and Barbara Stanwyck for Ball of Fire. Okay, 5 great actresses and 5 wonderful movies. I'm going to go with Betty Davis this year for The Little Foxes. A lot of these movies I hold a special place in my heart for. Both The Little Foxes and The Ball of Fire are up there on my favorite movies list. But I'm going to go with Betty Davis. This is such an entertaining movie. It's quite stagey, as one can imagine. I mean, it's kind of hard to move the little foxes around a lot, even though they do. But oh boy, is it entertaining. And it's really because Betty Davis just totally becomes such a bitchy character, Regina. So, and yeah, again, one of the Southern belles, but she just she lives in that house. You never see her leave that damn house. So, and she doesn't like say a lot of mean things a lot, but just the look she gives just stare daggers through you. And so I can't imagine the play being better than this, even though I'm sure it was wonderful. And it's often been said that Betty Davis had a lot of parts Tallulah Bankhead had on the stage, but here she's not at all like Tallulah. She's Betty Davis. And there's just one scene that will always stick with me is when she looks in a mirror and she thinks of herself as this beautiful woman, and she looks in the mirror and sees not only is she ugly on the inside, she's beginning to show it on the outside, and she just looks at it like, oh damn. She's like oh, she's sad, but oh, okay, what am I gonna do? So that's Betty Davis to me. And Betty Davis was not an old woman when she filmed this, but you believe her. Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm picking the same person. I'm picking Betty Davis for Little Foxes. I do love this movie, and I don't know if it's my favorite one she made. It's difficult to say because I would have to see her whole films, but it's in my like top 3 definitely. But I do like the other performances this year. This is the one that made me, when I first saw it and when I watch it again, I say wow. Like, you just think wow every scene she's on. I remember the ending, and it seems weird not saying, oh, I don't want to spoil the Little Foxes, because I feel like most people are familiar with the Little Foxes because it's on stage and screen, but I won't spoil it. But the ending, there is a final shot with her, and I will remember it forever, and I love it. And there's also a death scene in this involving her that is, oh my gosh, so sinister, and she plays it so perfectly. Oh my gosh, yeah, where she shows no reaction whatsoever, but also has this like almost sinister view on her face when it's all over. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And it's just, it is a film that could have been stagey if we didn't have these amazing actors in it, and if we didn't have a script that knew how to move things around. But so as a result, it is actually really entertaining. It doesn't feel like, oh, I could be watching a stage version of this with live performers. Why am I not watching that? No, it feels like a very vibrant, fun film to watch. And Betty Davis has a reputation as a great actress for a reason, and this is her at her best, in my opinion. It's one of her best performances.
1942. We have Betty Davis for Now Voyager, the winner Greer Garson for Mrs. Miniver, Katharine Hepburn for Woman of the Year, Rosalind Russell for My Sister Eileen, and Teresa Wright for The Pride of the Yankees. Oh dear. Again, I'm going to go with Betty Davis for Now Voyager. This is another movie I absolutely adore. And it's kind of one of those, I guess when you think of all movie romances, this is kind of like the stereotype that suits them, but it's deserving of that. It's very emotional, but it deserves every emotion it gets from you. And a lot of that is due to wonderful Betty Davis. And again, it's a transformative film. We seem to like those. The Oscars seem to like those. She goes from this stereotypical spinster, she looks nothing like Betty Davis, to a great lady, because she finally gains the confidence that she's always lacked, and she's able to finally stand up against her mother. So it's completely entertaining just seeing her finally find her footing, and you just root for this character every step of the way, and you want her to find love, even if it's doomed, she finds it. And so just, she has to do so many things in this movie. She has to portray so many emotions, so many conflicts in this movie, and every one of them is earned, and every one of them you totally feel.
Yeah, she's probably my runner-up this year, and that's difficult to say, but yeah, she probably is. I'm gonna go with the winner on this one. I'm going with Greer Garson. She's your runner-up, yeah. For one thing, this is a movie where everyone in it is fantastic. yet she's the best performance in it, and as she should be. The film is called Mrs. Miniver. She should be the best part of it, but it's also a performance that requires she has to be very strong and hold her, that stiff upper lip British mentality throughout the whole thing. And while like, it's granted it's Hollywood's version of that, it's not like we're watching a authentic British movie of it. It still works because her character is believable, and you do believe she's strong and that she's willing to put up with all of this for the sake of her family and for the sake of her country and for the sake of, just because the whole world's watching England at this moment, and that you have to be strong. What else can you do? And I think that it's also the type of film that has to show, the high points of life as well as the low points of life. So she has to be very comfortable in one scene and on the edge in the other. And Greer Garson is obviously an amazing actress, so she can do all that. And it's, again, the film requires her to be the best part of it, and she is. And it's a good movie, so I feel like if the lead performance was lacking, it wouldn't be as good as it is.
Okay, 1943. We have, and this is a difficult year, we often cite it as one. We have Jean Arthur for The More the Merrier, Ingrid Bergman in For Whom the Bell Tolls, Joan Fontaine for The Constant Nymph, Greer Garson for Madame Curie, Jennifer Jones for The Song of Bernadette. And I'm going to go with Greer Garson for Madame Curie. And Jennifer Jones was the winner. But we say we think she should have been nominated, but we don't think she should have won. But we have a hard time choosing which actress really should have won. But I have to go with Greer Garson. You didn't think I was not going to pick Greer Garson for at least 1 year, did you?
I figured if you weren't picking her for Mrs. Miniver, you were picking her for Madame Curie.
Yeah, I really like this film. And I like any film with her and Walter Pidgeon. Perfection. And this movie is such an empowering movie. And I think this is the kind of role Greer Garson must have really liked doing. I mean, she did like making comedies, but if she had to do dramatic pictures, I'm sure she liked doing this. She liked playing such a strong woman that other women can look up to. There's great speeches in this movie, such great little moments. It has cute moments. It has serious moments. I think this is this is what I want from everything I want from a biopic. It's not in the least bit stuffy. It's one I could really just sit back and watch. And she and Walter Pidgeon, their chemistry is at their all-time best in this movie, which is really saying something. There's such these just nice, likable moments between them that really show what makes them one of the ultimate teams of classic cinema. And there's an opening scene with Greer Garson in the classroom, and you realize that she's hungry. She doesn't eat because she can't afford it, but because she has to go to classes, so she like faints in the class. And so and at first you think she's like listening to this lecture so sternly, but then you find out, oh my god, she's just sick. So it's kind of a interesting scene that I like, but she ends up later quoting that professor in her wonderful ending speech that really just puts the cherry on top of the ice cream, I think. So this is not only a great film, but Greer Garson totally makes this movie. This Walter Pidgeon said this was his favorite, and I can definitely tell theirs is just they really like making this film.
Okay, so yeah, this is a year that, well, I don't think Jennifer Jones should have won. I do think she should have been nominated, but I think that if Jean Arthur, Ingrid Bergman, Joan Fontaine, or Greer Garson, if either of them won, I would have been like, yeah, okay, that's about right, because it could have gone on any of them. I think it is such a difficult year to pick one, and again, it's kind of apples and oranges because a lot of these performances are pretty different.
Oh, and we also think that Song of Bernadette, the acting honors go to the supporting cast rather than the lead actress, particularly Vincent Price.
Yes. Yeah, if he was nominated, but he wasn't. Too bad. But I think that, and I remember there was something Ingrid Bergman said to Jennifer Jones, oh, well, your Bernadette was better than my Maria, and I was like, oh, that's nice of you, Ingrid, but it wasn't. But don't get me wrong, Jennifer Jones is a good Bernadette, and I don't think it's a bad performance by any stretch of the word, but I do think it's a fantastic movie, wonderful movie. But yeah, Ingrid Bergman is, I would say she's better in For Whom the Bell Tolls. And she's probably, again, my runner-up. I think I've got to go with Jean Arthur. And maybe it's just because all the other performances are dramatic, so therefore Jean Arthur does stand out, because it's very difficult to pick between the dramatic performances who should have won. But it also could be because hindsight is 2020, and I know it's her only time to win, and I do like her a lot, and this is her at her best. So, and again, it could just be because I'm taking the easy way out, and I don't want to pick between these dramatic performances, because it's so hard. But, so, this is a performance that, again, kind of like, Claudia Colbert and It Happened One Night, she has to be light for most of it, but also earn her dramatic moments when she gets them. And it's a film that's mostly light, even though it does deal with some, like, a little bit of the war and that mentality. But it's mostly just this light rom-com. And most light rom-coms don't have performances that, you know, are willing to stand next to somebody like Ingrid Bergman and For Whom the Bell Tolls, Jean Fontaine, and The Constant Nymph, and performances like that. But this one does, because it's that much charming, and it is that much sincere. Like, I don't feel like I'm watching an actress trying to be cute and funny. I feel like I'm just watching somebody actually going through these motions, and somebody actually in this situation, like somebody actually in DC who has to share her apartment with, you know, two men that she's very uncomfortable doing. And and a lot of people say this performance is her at her best, and if it's her at her best, then she probably should have got an Oscar, because her at her best is really good.
Okay, 1944. We have the winner, Ingrid Bergman, for Gaslight, Claudia Colbert for Since You Went Away, Betty Davis for Mr. Skeffington, Greer Garson for Mrs. Parkington, and Barbara Stanwyck for Double Indemnity. Very different. Ingrid Bergman is very good in Gaslight, but I think Diana Wynyard's better in the 1940 version, personally. She has more of that meek quality needed. And this is a very difficult year to choose. I want to go with, again, Betty Davis for Mr. For Mr. Skeffington, and I know this seems like I'm like the biggest Betty Davis fan, but like I said, Norma Shear is my favorite actress. Obviously, I like Betty Davis because I'm not blind, but yeah, I really like Betty Davis's films. I especially love this one. This is again a very interesting character. That Betty Davis totally becomes. I guess when you think Betty Davis, you don't really think great beauty, but in this movie, she plays this woman who is very beautiful, and oh so vain. It's almost comical of how vain she is.
He probably thinks this podcast is about her.
Oh yeah, because I said she's so vain. My bad. Well, anyway, she marries Claude Rains, this nice Mr. Skeffington who really loves her. And she marries him because he sees her as the goddess she wants to be, which isn't a good foundation for a marriage, especially because looks don't last forever. So this part is very interesting for Betty Davis, like I said, because you often don't think of her as a great beauty. I mean, with those eyes, I think she is quite beautiful. Maybe not Joan Crawford beautiful, but she has definitely a look about her. But she is luminous in this film. Whoever did her makeup did a fantastic job. I mean, this is probably Betty Davis at her loveliest. And you totally believe that she would be this vain woman. There are just these little mannerisms she does that totally make this character, and I think Claude Rains is equally great as Mr. Skeffington, and I don't think he was nominated. Oh yeah, he was for Best Supporting Actor, which is weird because he's really, I guess, the lead actor, but whatever. So I think they both really make this film, and it's a incredibly entertaining film, and just look for these little moments of Betty Davis and her vain character that has to really come down to earth. It's such a fun movie to watch.
Okay, so for this year, I'm gonna go with, and I do agree, I like Diana Wynyard in Gaslight more than Ingrid Bergman. As much as I love Ingrid Bergman as an actress, I think Diana Wynyard just nailed it. But I'm gonna go with, and again, not to put down Ingrid's performance in Gaslight, which is also good, but I'm gonna go with Barbara Stanwyck this year for, I know, it's shocking, yeah, for Double Indemnity, and I know she's a lot of people's, like, favorite to win, and I think it's mainly because, the Double Indemnity plot, as a big fan of film noir as we are, I've seen the Double Indemnity plot done a number of times with different actresses, because it became a popular plot point after Double Indemnity's success, because it was the rare film noir to actually get recognized by the Oscars and by critics. And just, and again, most film noirs were overlooked and they were seen as like these little B movies, but not this one. So a lot of films try to copy it, and but in a lot of those movies, when the woman is conning the man, I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, you are so stupid to fall for this. But yeah, in this one, because Barbara Stanwyck is, and granted, we know from the beginning that she's conning him because of the way the film is framed. But the way she almost puts the moves on him, and the way she carries herself, and the way she handles their love scenes, you're like, yeah, I mean, he is kind of like, you know, pretty dumb to fall for this, but at the same time, it's pretty believable. Like, yeah, I think a lot of men would fall for this, and the movie shows that he's not the only one she's conning. She's conning everybody in this movie, and everybody falls for it because she's that convincing, and because, I mean, her character should have won an Oscar because that's how convincing she is. Because she doesn't seem like she's putting on an act in the moment, even though we, the audience, know she is. She does, and we can get the sense that she does. You can understand somebody in the situation falling for it, and it's a part that requires so much of that. Because if you were like, oh, well, she's clearly conning him, you'd be like, well, the lead is an idiot then. But it's not like that. And again, she seems to be enjoying herself playing this, like, lusty woman who, like, doesn't even flinch when her husband chokes to death. That's a great scene. She just keeps driving and almost has a smile on her face. Oh, it's so good, yeah. Yeah, it's like one of the biggest femme fatale performances. It is one of the most irresistible ones, and again, Barbara Stanwyck is one of the queens of noir, so what more can you ask for?
1945, we have Ingrid Bergman for The Bells of St. Mary's, the winner Joan Crawford for Mildred Pierce, Greer Garson for The Valley of Decision, Jennifer Jones for Love Letters, and Jean Tierney for Leave Her to Heaven. I'm between Joan Crawford and Jean Tierney. I mean, those are two incredible movies and incredible performances. But I want to go with Joan Crawford because I'm going to hate myself if I don't pick Joan Crawford. I love Joan Crawford. I love Jean Tierney too, like any old movie fan would, I like to think. But I think Mildred Pierce is one that really requires more emotion. There's so many classic scenes in this. And again, it's a sacrificing mother story, but it's done completely different, a completely new twist. It's fresh with a noir touch, and Joan Crawford proved that this was the genre she was meant for. This was her first delve into the genre, unless you count A Woman's Face, which is kind of a precursor to that, and she's stuck there because she's obviously amazing. And there are a lot of great speeches in this. Obviously the classic "Get out before I kill ya." Yeah, that gutsy Joan Crawford speech that we love her for. And you completely love Mildred Pierce. She's a wonderful character, and how many women can make such a nice character, a character who's nothing but sacrificing? So interesting, because normally she doesn't have these a lot of weak moments where you're like, Mildred, that wasn't nice. I mean, everything she does, you understand what she does. If she gets mad, it's completely justified. But Joan Crawford makes her so interesting because it's the mystique of Joan Crawford. A lot of people often cite her as a movie star rather than an actress. That is I think that's really insulting.
Those people haven't seen enough movies.
I know. Those people, I think that's really insulting to Joan Crawford's image. Joan Crawford is an amazing actress. Anyone who says differently needs to go watch more of her movies. And I think this is the Joan Crawford performance, which is really saying something because she's never less than amazing.
I too am between Joan Crawford and Jean Tierney this year because, I mean, they are standouts. And I feel like probably if Gene Tierney was competing with somebody other than Joan Crawford from Mildred Pierce, I'd probably pick her, but I gotta go with Joan Crawford and Mildred Pierce. And again, like you said, she is given more of a sliding scale of emotions, and that can tip her over the edge because she has more to show. But because she's playing someone more complex, not a complete monster like Gene Tierney in Leave It to Heaven. Not to put that performance down by any means, obviously not, because I almost picked her. But Joan Crawford and Mildred Pierce, from the moment she's on screen, her very first scene, you know you're gonna watch something special, because it's, and I know I've been saying sincere a lot, but that's clearly what I like. It is sincere, and you do, she pulls you in from the moment you see her. You're like, oh man, what happened here? You know, I want to stick to the end of this one. And as you said, everything she does in this movie, you're on her side. You're never like, oh, you crossed a line or anything like that. Even though she has to do some, some questionable things in this. Consider she has to pick some men that are clearly bad news, and she has to fight with her daughter. Granted, her daughter is very bratty, so you're like, oh well, yeah, I guess this daughter had it coming. But and again, it's a movie that the whole movie is really focused on her and her struggles, even though there are other fantastic performances in this movie. This is a well-acted film. She has to be the anchor of it, and she has to be like the sane one in it, and yet the sane one that's not boring. It's not boring compared to everybody else just because she's the one with the most sense to her. And it's a moving performance too, because when she does kick out her daughter, she doesn't want to do it. Her daughter pushed her over the edge, but she loves her daughter, and she welcomes her back with open arms. But at the same time, you the audience know that the daughter's bad news, and you're like, oh, well, she's already had her slew of second chances. But yeah, Mildred doesn't make you say, well, you're being stupid right now. She makes you go, oh, isn't that nice instead?
1946. We have the winner, Olivia de Havilland, for To Each His Own, Celia Johnson for Brief Encounter, Jennifer Jones for Duel in the Sun, Rosalind Russell for Sister Kenny, and Jane Wyman for The Yearling. That's pretty difficult. And I think I know who you're going to pick. But I will go with Rosalind Russell for Sister Kenny. This was a film, she plays she plays a real woman who found a cure to polio, who a lot of people don't take seriously. I remember, when I was younger, I would see that plot and be like, well, that doesn't sound very interesting. I don't know why, because now I'm like, yes, give me that. But watching this movie, it's very, very entertaining. And when we think of Rosalind Russell, we don't think of a dramatic actress, which I guess is kind of a shame because she's equally inept at both. She's equally wonderful at both, excuse me. But Sister Kenny, again, it's one of those films that would not be a very good movie if the main actress didn't have fire, and Rosalind Russell has fire. You want to see her succeed. It really pulls at your heartstrings because she's helping these children and no one's taking her seriously. And yet it's not really a melodramatic film in the least. It really stays strained and keeps its dignity. It doesn't go over the edge with, oh, let's bring it, because it's dealing with children. It's not like, let's make this really schmaltzy. No, not this movie. So it's a good movie to begin with. It's a very underrated movie, but I think this is a great movie because Rosalind Russell makes it so. This is an underrated performance from an underrated movie.
Yeah, all these performances are interesting. I think that Jane Wyman would be my runner-up for The Yearling. It's definitely a powerful performance. You thought I was going to pick her. I thought you might. I'm picking Celia Johnson for Brief Encounter this year, though, because this performance, is touching, and it moved me, and it stuck with me after I saw it. I didn't cry because I'm a robot, but Bianca did. Bianca did. If Bianca cried, that means most people will cry. But but I almost did. I was close. And it's one that we're with her because it's through her memories and her flashbacks, and it's again, it's really moving, and there are these really dramatic moments that could have felt over the top, but the script, the direction, and the performance work so well, and it's so believable that you never think, well, that's over the top. I mean, there's a part where she almost commits suicide because she feels like she's lost something that important to her. And yet, and again, in pretty much any movie, if that would have happened, you would have been like, oh my gosh, you just went over the top. Not this movie. This movie is smart. This movie knows what it's doing. And that's, I think, the best way to describe this performance. It's smart. Because she is a woman that, didn't plan for this stuff to happen. What happens to her, being involved in an affair and it becoming serious. She didn't, it just happened, but she's smart enough not to know to, go out of her way to fight it at the same time because she does want it to happen. And it's a moving performance, and it did touch me when I watched it, and when I think back to it, it still touches me.
It's funny that we both chose parts that could have easily been dramatic, but not with these actresses.
Oh yeah.
Okay, in 1947, we have Joan Crawford for Possessed, Susan Hayward for Smash Up, The Story of a Woman, Dorothy McGuire in Gentleman's Agreement, Rosalind Russell in Morning Becomes Electra, and Loretta Young for The Farmer's Daughter. My Loretta Young won, by the way. And my runner-up would have been Joan Crawford for Possessed, but I have to agree with the winner, Loretta Young. And a lot of people, and there's a famous story, nobody thought she'd win. She was kind of the dark horse because it's a comedy. Comedy actresses don't win. But this is a delightful, delightful film. It's I adore it. I wish there were more films like this. I think there are just such a lot of moments that show the charm of Loretta Young. She has to put on this accent, and there are these cute little moments where she's a maid, but there are also these really empowering moments where she suddenly is thrown into the world of politics and becomes a politician and makes these earnest speeches. So you do get a little bit of an oomph from this comedy performance. I mean, it's not just a little, oh, she's a maid performance. I mean, she gets to show off a little more than you think. So this is just really a charming movie, and I think it just is the way it is because Loretta Young aces the role.
I'm gonna go with Joan Crawford for Possessed this year. You're happy one of us picked that performance, yeah. Because wow, this performance. And it's another one that right when it starts up, it doesn't give you time to catch your breath. You're already caught up in it, and because you see this character where she is at the moment, and because she plays somebody who goes through a mental breakdown and who has obvious mental problems that are ignored through the years, through flashbacks we see these problems occur, and it's and again, it's another one that could have been over the top, but isn't. It does feel believable, and the movie could have been more melodramatic in somebody else's hands, but you buy it in Joan Crawford's hands. And the tackle of mental illness, I'm sure maybe some doctors have their own opinions on it, whatever. To me, because we have Joan Crawford at the head, and we are interested in her character and what she's going through. I find this movie very interesting, and it does work, and it's one that it is the type of film that does mainly rely on the performance of the lead actress, so it's great that they got a fantastic actress to handle it, and it's a performance that I remember from the first time I saw it, I haven't forgotten it. There were always these scenes that stuck in my mind, and always these moments that never left, and it's just one of those performances I didn't have to think too much about. I just always remembered. It was just always one that I could recall very easily.
Okay, 1948. We have Ingrid Bergman for Joan of Arc, Olivia de Havilland for The Snake Pit, Irene Dunne for I Remember Mama, Barbara Stanwyck for Sorry, Wrong Number, and Jane Wyman for Johnny Belinda. What a group. And Jane Wyman was the winner. And I'm going to go with the winner, Jane Wyman. She also gave one of our favorite Oscar acceptance speeches. So with this film, and I picked Lou Ayres for Best Actor too. And I think they really do complement each other in this movie. It's sort of a new spin on sort of the Pygmalion type of performance, where it really requires, I guess, both playing off of each other and the man bringing out something in this troubled woman. So with this one, she is a woman who can't talk. That automatically seems like something, she can't talk. It's like Arthur Kennedy in Bright Victory. He can't see, he can't act with his eyes, he's blind. Well, so Jane Wyman, she can't use her voice, but she doesn't need her voice. She uses every other part of her, every other fiber of her being, every other part of her body to convey emotion, and it's really touching. You forget you're watching this glamorous actress. You think you're watching this girl who really can't talk. You forget what Jane Wyman's voice sounds like. You just totally are caught up in this woman. So there's a lot of really sincere moments, really sensitive moments that make this movie because of the wonder of Jane Wyman.
I too am picking Jane Wyman this year, the winner. I think that it's the type of performance that throws you into what's going on, and it is the performance. She can't utter even a sound. She doesn't just talk. You don't hear any part of her throughout this movie because she has to be completely mute, and she also has to be depressed and be lonely and be misunderstood and all these things that could have been a very soapy experience, but it's really not. The film is way too smart for that, and Jane Wyman is way too good of an actress to really let it go down that road, and all the actors in this film do a really good job, but she in particular is a standout. Granted, she has, the main role and the main showy role, but it's a part that it's not like, oh, it's the winner because it's the gimmicky part, because she doesn't do this. No, it's a legitimately good performance. It's a legitimately fascinating performance, one that I always like to go back to and watch again, because because the movie is really good too, but because the performance is so interesting, and so she plays a character that's more complex than people think, because everybody assumes she's stupid, but she's not. She's just mute, and it's just a fascinating performance that I like to go back and revisit every so often.
A lot of good performances in that movie.
Oh yeah.
1949, we have Jean Crane for Pinky, the winner Olivia de Havilland for The Heiress, Susan Hayward for My Foolish Heart, Deborah Carr for Edward My Son, and Loretta Young for Come to the Stable. And I'm going with the winner again. Olivia de Havilland in The Heiress. What a performance. This is Olivia de Havilland at her absolute best. And they make her look so plain. I mean, beautiful Olivia de Havilland.
She had a habit of playing these plain roles.
I know. Like her sister.
Yeah, because, they're so bland and ordinary looking.
Well, she plays this really plain woman who is courted by such a handsome, dashing man. And obviously she's completely swept up in it, but her father, played by Ralph Richardson, the great Ralph Richardson, sees right through him. So it's not a pleasant movie by any means. You feel completely bad for her. She finally thinks she's so lonely. She finally thinks she finds someone, and then boom, oh, he's just using you. Shocker, because we knew all the time he was using her, but she didn't. You're not once like, maybe he does like her. No. But there's a very famous end scene with her, and again, there is a transformation, but it comes at the very end, where she finally just accepts who she is, and just isn't taking his, she doesn't need him anymore. So it's a very, again, I said it's not a pleasant movie, but it's definitely an interesting movie, and it is kind of stagey, but not really, from the way it's filmed, from from the great way it's filmed, and Olivia de Havilland just totally takes it into totally makes it her own, and it's an incredibly cinematic movie that could have been stagey.
Yeah, that ending scene where she's climbing the staircase definitely, I think, helped clinch her this Oscar, and rightfully so, because I would also pick her to win this year. It is a performance that it is a performance where she has to be pathetic, and you do have to, like, you almost want to go, "Aw, sweetie," watching it, but also because she does fall for essentially a con man, and but not in a way that you're like, are you stupid for falling for it? In a way that you're like, oh, well, she really wants this to happen. Of course she's gonna believe him. And it also, like, even though, and I think in that sense of it, you are like, oh, because she does want to believe it so badly. Yeah, so she's gonna believe it. You're not like, she's stupid. Like, who would ever fall for that? And she does have to play this, like, again, this lonely character that is, but also has these, like, little bright happy moments where she deludes herself to thinking that this man wants her. And I always remember the scene where she first lays eyes on Montgomery Clift, and the camera doesn't see Montgomery Clift. We just see Olivia de Havilland noticing him, and she's like, "Oh, that's a handsome man." Like, and I think he might be interested in me. Like, she's so hopeful that, yeah. And again, it's just, Olivia de Havilland's always good with that, just showing, like, these little moments that always stand out, and create a bigger performance and a bigger character. And yeah, this film, it excels at that.
1950. Now this is like 1943, but harder. Okay, we have Ann Baxter for All About Eve, Betty Davis for All About Eve, Judy Holliday for Born Yesterday, Eleanor Parker for Caged, and Gloria Swanson for Sunset Boulevard. Well, that's a difficult lot to choose from, but I'm gonna go with Gloria Swanson for Sunset Boulevard. I think this is a real career-defining performance. All the other actresses had other parts that you can associate with them. I think for Gloria Swanson, the first thing you think of when you think of Gloria Swanson is this movie, even though she also has a lot of other great parts like Sadie Thompson, The Trespasser, both of which she was nominated for. This is just the ultimate Gloria Swanson film, and maybe I'm just a sucker for it because of the type of character she plays, because we like silent films. It's a joy kind of seeing this sort of character, but this is a part that people really thought Gloria Swanson was like this, and she was nothing like this. She was actually quite up to date, quite hip, as she always was. It wasn't just in the 50s. She was always pretty. I mean, she was never Norma Desmond. She was Gloria Swanson, but a lot of other silent actors were like this, so I think she really used a lot of them, and she even uses kind of her own old mannerisms from movies that really make this a delight for fans of Gloria Swanson and silent films in general. And so I just have to go with this one. I think just every little moment she has is a classic. Every line she says is astounding. It's a joy or a terror. This is why we love movies, because of parts like this.
Yes, what a great performance, because I'm picking it too. It is, again, this is a good year. All the actresses are very good, but this performance in particular is a tour de force, is a classic, is what we like about the movies. And like you said, Gloria Swanson isn't playing herself in this movie. She wasn't going through these problems. She was very happy where she was in life, and she was successful in business and in other fields of work, but in fashion. But she is also playing herself because she's making fun of, like, these old little acting techniques she had. And watching an actress, even though she's not this character in real life, being able to make fun of herself, make fun of the things she used to do for a living, and so openly and mawkishly, it's amusing and it's hilarious, and it's in a dark way, but it's funny. And this performance is funny, but in a way that you know, because it is a black comedy, you're like, is it okay that I'm laughing at this? Yeah, it's okay. You're supposed to laugh at it, but it's also like humiliating, and it's
sad.
yeah, it's sad. But it's also, you can't help but laugh watching it, and it's one of granted, it is a bonus for silent film lovers like us, because there are all these like little moments in this performance, and especially if you've seen Gloria Swanson in like her silence in like her old Cecil B. DeMille films, like, you know, Male and Female, Why Change Your Wife, yeah, what? It Fails in Vanderbilt, yeah. It's right, Don't Change Your Husband, Why Change Your Wife. Yeah, I'm not getting those mixed up, right? Yeah, but but even though she is actually a bit more bright in those performances than, like, I think a lot of people remember her for, she is still a little, like, dramatic in them, which was fine for the silent era, but obviously, by 1950 standards, if you acted like that, you'd be laughed off the screen, and this character does not realize that. It's so amusing to watch her, but that's another thing, because this character is so interesting. This performance couldn't have anything less than the best, and it has the best.
Okay, 1951. We have Katharine Hepburn for The African Queen, Vivien Leigh for A Streetcar Named Desire, who won, Eleanor Parker for Detective Story, Shelley Winters for A Place in the Sun, and Jane Wyman for The Blue Veil. Again, I think they chose the right person. Vivien Leigh. A much-deserved second Oscar. This is a very, very entertaining movie. Stagey, to be sure, as anything from the stage in such a restricted setting would be, but oh boy, is it entertaining. Everyone's good. I think Vivien Leigh is the best of the bunch, personally, because this whole movie, this movie needs the Blanche character to be good, and you're following big shoes. You're following Jessica Tandy, and so yeah. But if anyone could do what Vivien Leigh could, and how, she and this isn't anything like Scarlett O'Hara. Again, she plays a Southern belle, a former Southern belle, but
similarities in there.
Yeah, completely different. A woman on the verge of a breakdown, who's losing every inch of her sanity, who's clinging to youth that's no longer there. It's sad. It's just it's a pitiful performance, and Vivien Leigh totally becomes this character. When you watch Vivien Leigh, you always forget you're watching Vivien Leigh. You totally believe you're seeing this character in her truest form, in her darkest moments. So it's just such a raw performance that only someone from the stage could have done. I think it's not like Jessica Tandy's performance, from what I hear, and which is a good thing, because only Vivien Leigh should give her a performance that's Vivien Leigh's, and she does.
Yeah, I too am gonna pick Vivien Leigh this year. It kind of sucks that Eleanor Parker's always against surefire wins, because I do wish I could pick her, but she's good in everything. But
I think so too.
Yeah, but again, you can't not pick Vivien Leigh to win this year. She is. Because it is a very complex part to play, so if you ace it, you know, you're doing something right, and more than ace it, she does, because it's one of, I mean, people probably thought she was never going to rival Scarlett O'Hara, and yet, oh boy, she did, with another very complex character, and again, another Southern belle, but that's really the only similarity to Scarlett O'Hara here. While Scarlett O'Hara was strong, yet, also kind of a brat, not kind of a brat, but Blanche DuBois is pathetic and yeah, you know, very troubled, and it, again, kind of like Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard, pathetic enough that you do find yourself laughing at it, and then you feel bad at yourself from laughing at it, because like it seems the movie clearly wants you to find these characters like amusingly funny at times, just because of how like almost disgusting and sad their lives are, but also, you know, you should feel bad for laughing, because it's like, oh, but this is really sad, and what these characters are going through is terrible, but yet I mean, that's a difficult performance to capture. And again, Blanche Dubois is the lead of this show, and she's the driving force behind everything, and all the characters have a connection through her. And yet, I mean, and again, you couldn't ask for a better actress to pull it all off, and she's fantastic in this.
1952, we have the winner, Shirley Booth, for Comeback Little Sheba, Joan Crawford for Sudden Fear, Betty Davis for The Star, Julie Harris for the Member of the Wedding, Susan Hayward for With a Song in My Heart. 5 amazing actresses. Okay, wouldn't you know what, I'm probably between Joan Crawford and Betty Davis.
Oh boy. But you're gonna set off a lot of fires.
I'm gonna go with Joan Crawford.
I love this performance.
Yeah. When you speak of tour de forces, this is one of them. Sudden Fear is a very unique noir. It almost borderlines horror territory from just the sheer terror of that. I mean, as one can suggest from the title, the torment that this character goes through is not psychological horror. It is flat out like, I mean, not psychological noir. It's flat out noir mixed with a bit of horror elements because her life is really in danger. And so Joan Crawford really has to just show, obviously, the fear, the terror of this character. And you are so uneasy because you feel bad for her. I mean, not only is she a likable character, she's a strong woman who stands by what she believes, but is and lets herself fall in love with someone, only to find out that he hates her and he wants to kill her. So naturally, one can understand her, the flip-flop she does from a character who's enamored to just someone in complete shock and like who's been lied to, who's been used, and now she's frightened. And of course, Joan Crawford pulls this off. There are just so many. What I remember of this movie is not the dialogue; it's the moments of Joan Crawford being frightened, because a lot of it she's not talking like, "Oh, I'm frightened." You know, there are these little just moments of her trying to protect herself that stick in my mind. Of her trying to hide this recording she finds, and then she breaks it because she's so frightened. It's moments like that just really show just the fear she's going through and really make you root for this character, even though you're not sure if she can get out of this.
Yeah, that is a fantastic performance, and I do think I'm gonna go with the winner this year. I think I might go with Shirley Booth. Maybe it's just because I picked Joan Crawford twice already, but also this is a great performance too, and it's another performance that is pathetic and it is sad, but I don't find myself laughing at this one. It's not one that like, oh, you laugh and then you feel bad about it. No, I don't laugh at it. I'm just mostly staring at the screen like, oh boy, like throughout it, because it is very depressing, but yet it's one where the character is kind of also oblivious to everything going on and the fact that her life is depressing because she's just kind of going through it at the moment, and it's because the way she views the world is very ignorant, and it's another performance that could have easily been like almost caricature-ish and a little over the top, but it does seem like, because I've watching this movie, I'm like, I know people like this, you know, I'm like, people like it who don't really get what's going on and view things differently than they should and different from reality and stuck in their own little world. But this one dives into why she's like that. Oh, because something happened in her marriage in her past, and it still obviously sticks with her, and it threw her off course a little bit. But that doesn't mean, you know, her life still isn't a little odd and a little weird. But it's also one that it's not weird enough that it becomes grotesque and, you know, too weird to relate to, because again, watching this movie I kept thinking, yep, I know people like this, and that's clearly what this type of performance is supposed to be. It's supposed to be one that you can relate to or think, oh yeah, I know people like this, I have relatives like this, I do have relatives like this. Yeah, good performance.
Okay, 1953. We have a new crop of people here. We have Leslie Caron in Lily, Ava Gardner in Magumbo, the winner Audrey Hepburn in Roman Holiday, Deborah Carr in From Here to Eternity, and Maggie McNamara in The Moon is Blue. I think, and I know we agree on this year. I'll just say, I'm going to choose Leslie Caron in Lily, which is one of our favorite movies. And this is, I guess the word charm could have been coined to describe Leslie Caron in this. I mean, we both wish Mel Ferrer was nominated as well, but we're glad Leslie Caron was nominated, because she's the title character, and the film revolves around her growth, and oh boy is it believable. And Leslie Caron was 22 when she filmed this, but you really think she is this naive 16-year-old girl, just against, it's kind of like a young version of Comeback Little Sheba. She's stuck in her little world, because she's never been on the outside. She doesn't know anything about life, and so she has to slowly learn about it. She has to learn that, what first impressions aren't always who people really are, and that, people that she thought she could trust, she can't, and people that she can trust, she didn't think she could. So it's just, and not only that, she gets to dance in it, she gets to sing in it. It's it's a gorgeous, gorgeous film. It's incredibly well written, and it all really comes together because of wonderful Leslie Caron. And at first, she looks so frumpy, beautiful slender Leslie Caron, but you really see her become this woman. You really see her grow up before your eyes. Leslie Caron was good at that, because that's kind of like his Gigi character. You really do see her grow up before your eyes, and you believe every moment of it. You never once are like, well, how did she get there? You see it. And so I guess Leslie Caron, since we know her more of a dancer, I think she's overlooked as an actress. She's phenomenal in this. This movie is everything it is because of her and Mel Ferrer, and the charming little direction and done by the incredibly underrated Charles Walters, and just in the puppets, the wonderful puppetry. It all comes together for just one of the most delightful films that was ever put on the screen.
Yes, we really like this movie. Again, it's one of our favorites, which is saying something because we've seen tons and tons of movies. I totally get why Audrey Hepburn won, because she has to do everything in her movie, and she has to go through such a transition. But Leslie Caron has to do that too, and she has to make a sharper transition. She's not going from, young royalty to, grown-up royalty. She's going from completely naive and, to the point where she daydreams about a man who has absolutely no interest in her, but obviously she just has a schoolgirl crush on him and doesn't realize it, into someone who can grow up and realize, what love is, and the real connection she has with the lame puppeteer who she thinks hates her. But it's a performance that, again, it's definitely one of those performances where if the actress wasn't even kind of believable, it just would all fall flat. And you need somebody who can completely sell this character, because the character is so interesting and wonderful, and it needs to be as charming as the movie can be, because the movie is way too charming to even have an ounce of it go to waste. And luckily we have Leslie Caron, who is charming in herself, but also can pull off this rather complicated part, and it's a part that is, when you watch it, it's more complicated than you think, because it definitely is what starts out to what seems to be just a pretty naive girl with a schoolgirl crush. It's actually a little deeper than that, because she does have this connection to this puppeteer that she doesn't even realize, and she does have the ability to have something more than a crush on somebody. And like Bianca said, Leslie Caron also has to dance in this, and she has to sing, and I mean, actors who do those things are often ignored in general, but it's also, it's a part of acting in itself, because it's also part of selling a film and selling a performance is through also other forms of entertainment other than just plain acting. And so that definitely gives her performance an added bonus.
1954, I know this is another year we agree on. Okay, there's Dorothy Dandridge for Carmen Jones, Judy Garland for A Star is Born, Audrey Hepburn for Sabrina, the winner Grace Kelly for The Country Girl, and Jane Wyman for Magnificent Obsession. And I have to go with Judy Garland for A Star is Born. How can you not? It's one of the biggest Oscar upsets, justly so. And Judy Garland is following in big footsteps. Janet Gaynor was nominated for her performance in the predecessor, but I think this is a better film compared to the other one is good, but this one really just moves it the extra notch above that it really that you didn't think it could do, but it does. Not only that, it has one of the greatest actors of all time, James Mason, in the movie too. So you think, oh man, Judy Garland, like a singer, how could she compete? Well, obviously she does. She is just so moving. And not only that, she's never sounded better, I think. When she sings The Man That Got Away, I Was Born in a Trunk, this is Judy Garland at her all-time best. It doesn't get any better than that. But her performance as well, like I said, it's so moving. There are just so many moments where you really get to see Judy Garland be herself, be fun, be vibrant, the way we always wanted to see her. But there are also moments where she just breaks your heart. There's a very famous moment where she's in the dressing room just saying, talking about her husband, James Mason, an alcoholic, saying just sometimes I hate him, I can't stand him, but she loves him. I mean, she stays with him, but she says I hate me. She because she can't help him. She tries so hard and she can't. And then she has to go on and do this fun little musical scene, and so she just goes on, and right when the cameras start rolling, puts on a smile and starts singing about being happy. And it just does a complete 180. And I think this is what Judy Garland was. I think this is what Judy Garland had to do. This is just, she puts herself out there and you feel like it's real. It's not false. It's probably not even a performance. It's really just who she was, that just so happens to also be Vicky Lester / Esther Blodgett.
Yeah, I'm also going with Judy Garland this year. She was the favorite to win this year, and it was considered, again, a major upset when she lost. Groucho Marx called it the greatest robbery since Brinks, I think. And it was, yeah, if she had to lose, couldn't she lose to, like, Audrey Hepburn for Sabrina or something? But, again, Grace Kelly, fine actress, but completely miscast in The Country Girl. But anyway, Judy Garland in A Star is Born is, again, like you said, it ups the ante of the original. It takes it, because it is a good script, but by this point, by 50 standards, it was kind of old hat, because it was done a couple times since, and even before A Star is Born. So giving it this new code of treatment, and this new view, and and not a scene-for-scene remake at all, is definitely what a remake of this needed. And also, Judy gets to act through her musical numbers, because she gets to show, like Bianca said, she has to show cheeriness, and she has to show anguish and pain for these numbers that she has. But there are many dramatic scenes in this movie that she pulls off very well, and it makes the film even more depressing to watch, because it goes to places that the original didn't go, with this relationship and what it does to her and what it does to her personally, and how she does struggle with putting up with it. It's more believable, and the performance in itself, that makes it less of a star performance and more of a real human who happens to be in a star situation and dealing with another person who's only human, even though he too was a star. And what more can I say? It's considered a major upset for a reason, because she clearly should have won, and everybody had her to win this year. And it's funny because all her friends will even mention it years later. Oh yeah, Judy lost. Like in Lauren Bacall's memoirs, she even takes the time to mention, I was so bummed when Judy lost, because she was friends with the Bogarts, and that's how much this performance touched everybody, and it touched her friends, and how much everyone was rooting for her. So it just echoes this film in general, how this is somebody who's rising to the top, and her husband's rising to the bottom. Falling to the bottom. So it's just mirrors what's going on in the film, and it's ironic. But I mean, you can't help but root for her in both situations, in real life and on the screen.
1955. We have Susan Hayward for I'll Cry Tomorrow, Katharine Hepburn for Summertime, Jennifer Jones for Love is a Many Splendored Thing, Anna Manjani for The Rose Tattoo, and Eleanor Parker for Interrupted Melody. And I know we agree on this here too. The winner was Anna Manjani, but I think Susan Hayward should have won for I'll Cry Tomorrow. This is another, again, like Judy Garland, it's a incredibly heartbreaking performance. And it's based on a true story, based on Lillian Roth. So just even knowing that this is really happened to someone, I think even makes it just even more tug at your heartstrings. And it's not, it's really not a soaper. I think it's really degrading to call it a soaper. It's a biopic. It's real. That's what it is. I mean, it's about alcoholism, and Susan Hayward is completely believable as Lillian Roth. There are just moments of her dealing with her alcoholism that just, there's one moment where she's in a bar and she's asked for water because she's getting the shakes, and so she's trying to grab the glass of water, but her hand keeps shaking. She can't grab onto it, and the waitress says, "Oh, you got the shakes, honey. Drink some alcohol and make them go away." So she can't escape from her alcoholism even when she's trying. So there are there are so many, I mean, there are too many good scenes to count for this one. Just, this is the ultimate Susan Hayward performance, I think. This is probably one of the times I saw Susan Hayward and said, yes, there's an actress. There's someone who is what old movies represent, what an old movie actress is in my eyes. And this is the ultimate biopic.
Yeah, Susan Hayward definitely should have won this year, without a doubt. And I think that there's so many things you could say about this movie. Like you said, the fact that some people might dismiss this as a soaper is really insulting, and I think that shows people who say that haven't seen this movie, because this movie is way too intelligent and way too realistic to be even, in the same breath as sober. But the film should have been also nominated for Best Picture, but I digress. So Susan Hayward she's playing Lillian Roth, the singer, and so this is something that actually has happened to somebody, so it can't be over the top, or else she'll be like, oh well, because if something seems fake, then the whole movie seems fake as a result. But everything, luckily the script works, and so does the lead performance, and it really does. It's one where you have to see her hit rock bottom. You have to see her start out well and then just absolutely crash and burn in like the most humiliating and worst way possible. And I mean, Susan Hayward, maybe better than any actress, knows how to play drunk. I mean, yeah, she definitely knows how to play an alcoholic, somebody who is always searching for that bottle and reaching for that bottle, and it's almost like the long nightmare of it is reminiscent of Ray Milland in The Lost Weekend in that performance. And I mean, that's high marks in itself, comparing it to Ray Milland in The Lost Weekend. And it's a performance that sticks with you when it's over, and again, you're rooting for her throughout the whole thing. And that is it. If the lead performance has to be like pretty much one of the best parts about it, if not the best part about it. Luckily, you got somebody who can more than handle it.
1956. We have Carol Baker for Baby Doll, Ingrid Bergman, who won, for Anastasia, Katharine Hepburn for The Rainmaker, Nancy Kelly for The Bad Seed, and Deborah Kerr for The King and I. I'm going to go with the winner, Ingrid Bergman, for Anastasia. And unlike I'll Cry Tomorrow, this is complete fiction. Anastasia has been proven to be dead along with her family. Unfortunately, I mean, we all like to pretend that there is a fantasy there naturally. I know I would rather have it be that way. But as it is, Anastasia on its own is a incredibly entertaining film. It's almost like it's a dramatic film, but there are, and it's not a melodrama. I mean, it seems like it would be. It's not. And there are almost these little charming moments to it, and that you wouldn't expect. And this film is excellent because Ingrid Bergman's excellent. She is what this movie revolves around, and she feels completely sincere. I think one of the reasons you want to believe this fairy tale is because Ingrid Bergman's so believable in it herself. Even though you have to take this movie itself as complete fiction, your heart really goes out to Ingrid Bergman in this film. And this was her comeback performance. And she clearly did prove herself worthy with this, but I guess there is sort of almost a sincerity to her playing this lost woman, who time has forgotten. And so it also has these little touches of romance, little comedic touches sprinkled throughout. It's an enjoyable film that, again, really requires the lead actress to be good if the movie's going to be any good, and she is.
I too am gonna go with Ingrid Bergman this year for Anastasia. It's one of those performances where she does have to show like pretty much every emotion in the book, because she has to be confused, she has to be sad, she has to be happy, she has to be romantic, she has to be drunk in one scene, which is very funny. And again, the film is fiction, but it's like the film is like, okay, yeah, we kind of realize that this stuff isn't real, but we're gonna run with it and, do our own version with it. I'm glad they did, because the result is a very fun and likable movie. It's just completely agreeable, and obviously a big part of that is Ingrid Bergman in the lead role, and because she's charming and she's likable and delightful, and you do find yourself wanting her to really be Anastasia, because you're like, oh yeah, why can't this happen for her? And even though, and the film does actually present like, okay, maybe she's probably not Anastasia. So it does realize, okay, yeah, we know that, Anastasia is probably long gone. But it also does have fun with the, a little, elegant, glossy nature of it, but in, again, the most delightful way possible, and the way we like Hollywood to be. And, in a way that's actually intelligent and smart. And it's one of those where if we didn't buy and root for our lead, it just wouldn't be as fun, and you wouldn't want to stick with it for as long. It would just be a pretty looking film with an underwhelming story to it. But it's not like that at all. It part of why it works so well is because we have a likable lead, and we have somebody who we do want to stick with till the end, and somebody that we do root for, even though we know it's probably unlikely.
1957, we have Deborah Carr for Heaven Knows Mr. Allison, Anna Manjani for Wild is the Wind, Elizabeth Taylor for Raintree County, Lana Turner for Peyton Place, and the winner, Joanne Woodward, for The Three Faces of Eve. I'm going to go with the winner, Joanne Woodward. She's obviously a great actress. A fool would deny it. But I think I want to choose her because, and this is probably why the Oscars chose her too, she has to play 3 parts, not just one, and she has to be believable in all 3. And it's an interesting film because it's actually based on a true story. It's based on real conversations she had with her therapist. So the 3 faces of her, one is her true self completely hidden, that we don't see until probably like the midway point. One is this meek little housewife who just has no confidence whatsoever. The other one is an overly sexed vamp who just wants to party all night, so very different woman to begin with. So it's pretty entertaining seeing all of them come forward, and again, you don't know which one is the real her, and then you find out none of them are the real her. So it's an interesting journey into this woman's psyche, and Joanne Woodward's completely believable in it.
Yeah, I too am gonna go with the winner, and like with Janet Gaynor, it seems kind of unfair because she plays 3 parts. Janet Gaynor was nominated for 3 different parts compared to everybody else. I mean, that just doesn't seem fair because it is like the cards are stacked against everybody else. But it is also a really good performance. It's three really good performances, because she has to play three completely different women that you can tell apart just by the look they give, just by the way they carry themselves. They have to be completely different in a way that you immediately know, oh, that's that one. And like you said, it's about this, like, almost how these three women together are trying to figure out which one's real. Like, am I the real one? Am I the real one? And how they all come to realize, oh, well, if I'm not the real one, maybe that's okay. Maybe, maybe I'm not meant to be around, and maybe I shouldn't be around. But we also feel bad, and how it is based off somebody who really went through this, and real documents of this mental disease that was pretty unknown at the time. Now we obviously are very familiar with it, even though it is super duper rare. And it's just, again, unfair, but really, three really great performances nonetheless.
1958, we have the winner, Susan Hayward, for I Want to Live, Deborah Carr for Separate Tables, Shirley MacLaine for Some Came Running, Rosalind Russell for Auntie Mame, Elizabeth Taylor for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Stiff competition. I have to go with Rosalind Russell and Auntie Mame. I'm kind of biased. It's one of my favorite movies. But she is a complete delight. Hilarious. And this is a film that could have been stagey. It's really not. But I think, I know a lot of people play Auntie Mame, but it's so hard for me to picture someone being as good as Rosalind Russell. This is the part that is Rosalind Russell. Just every line is such gusto, such vibrance, that it's so much fun. You can't not listen to her. She has such a zest for life that really leaps off the screen and really makes you happy. This film is such a joy because Rosalind Russell is perfect in the lead role. I think this is Rosalind Russell at her best.
I too am going to pick Rosalind Russell for Auntie Mame. And like you said, stiff competition this year. This is definitely a really good year for actresses in the nominee category. But I am going to go with Rosalind Russell because it's a performance that requires absolute charm throughout the whole run, and it requires 100% throughout the whole thing. It just, it's a performance you can never be bored with. You have to always be paying attention to it, because that's what the character is. She's so full of life and so energetic. So you have to, if you got bored watching it would lack a lot of its sincerity, and it would seem like it just wouldn't seem like it was what the film was going for. But luckily, we have somebody who we can watch the whole time. Not only is the character interesting, but the way Rosalind Russell plays her is exactly the way you picture her coming across in real life. So it's a delightful performance, and it's funny, and it's likable, and it's just non-stop fun.
1959, we have Doris Day in Pillow Talk, Audrey Hepburn in The Nun Story, Katharine Hepburn in Suddenly Last Summer, Simone Signore in Room at the Top, and Elizabeth Taylor in Suddenly Last Summer. I want to go with Doris Day in Pillow Talk. Again, it's one of those, it's a comedy, it can't win. We could nominate her, but she can't win. But this is, again, it's like Claudia Colbert. It's one of the quintessential romantic comedy performances that almost, so many romantic comedy performances since have been imitation of this. And there's just so many funny moments with Doris Day. There's one moment we like in particular where she's with Tony Randall and she's crying in a restaurant. So over the top, over the top tears. Talking about Rock Hudson, saying, "I thought we were gonna be married," and Tony Randall's like, "Well, you can just forget about it." And so people listening naturally think she's talking about Tony Randall to him when she's really talking about Rock Hudson. So it's just,
it makes him sound awful.
Yes, so it's just a great comedic scene. There are a lot of scenes like that with Doris Day. She has such a great she's really good at reactions, reacting to moments that really make them funny, because Rock Hudson's often doing the funny stuff, and that's funny. But also Doris Day reacts to them, and that's funny. It's sort of a, Tracy Hepburn, he does something, she reacts, it's funny, sort of chemistry here. And so I think it's one of those comedic performances that we really take for granted, but really deserves more recognition.
For this year, I'm picking Audrey Hepburn for The Nun story. And I think it's because so much of this performance is what cannot be blatantly showed. You have to almost sense it coming from her because she's not allowed to show emotion in this because she's a nun. And it's really about this woman's struggle because she wants to be a nun, because she wants to help people. She specifically wants to help people in Africa, which reminds me of Audrey Hepburn in real life, how she helped people in Africa. And she wants to work at hospitals in Africa, and she becomes a nun to do that, but she also, in the process, there's obviously more to being a nun than doing that. She doesn't really feel the same amount of passion for the faith aspect of it, or for the chastity aspect of it, even though that part is much more subtly handled. It is, but yet, and how she struggles with not being able to show her emotions, but she knows it's what she has to do, and how she has to be quiet, and she really just can't even be a person, and how that she really struggles with that. So in the process, this is a performance that demands to be limited, but yet you have to know what she's thinking at all times, and you have to see the struggle she's going through. And again, you almost have to sense that she's doing it because she can't blatantly show it on her face or through her actions because she has to be calm all the time. And it's, absolutely fantastic that she's able to do that you always know what she's thinking. Because, for instance, the attraction she has to the Peter Finch doctor character, the atheist doctor, the attraction they have for each other is very subtly handled. It's not explicit at all, yet you know what's going on, even though the movie doesn't go out of its way to show it. The actors don't go out of their way to really display it, because that would be out of place. But yet you sense it, and you think, oh well, they definitely are attracted to each other, and that something like that could have completely gone over your head if the actors didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, it would have been disrespectful too. But and again, the whole movie is her. She has to carry this movie, and she has to carry the whole movie with very limited emotion. And I always knew what she was thinking, and I always knew the struggle she was going through, and you can sense it throughout the whole movie, and it makes the movie, a really interesting and fascinating experience. It is a wonderful performance.
1960, or only 5 years left. We have Greer Garson for Sunrise at Campobello, Deborah Carr for The Sundowners, Shirley MacLaine for The Apartment, Melina McCory for Never on Sunday, and Elizabeth Taylor. Sorry, she's nothing. Elizabeth Taylor in Butterfield 8, Who Won? I'm gonna go with Shirley MacLaine in The Apartment. I'm a sucker for The Apartment. Shirley MacLaine is completely delightful in this film. And again, she's someone who has to go through a lot of emotions, not just comedy. She has to go through dramatic moments too, because she attempts to kill herself. Okay, so clearly this isn't just funny, and it's not like some like aha. Really, it's more. It does have real down to earth moments that aren't used for comedy purposes, and you have to believe her moving from two very different men, from Fred McMurray to Jack Lemmon. And there are a lot of classic moments here between her and Jack Lemmon, especially the ending. And so Shirley MacLaine has sort of the kooky, that's what a lot of people use to describe her, and I think it's on display most here than it's ever been.
I agree. I too would pick Shirley MacLaine this year. Elizabeth Taylor said she should have won. And like you said, it is a bright, cheery performance, but one that also has a very strong sense of pain and anguish going through it, because it is a comedy drama, so you have to show both sides, and she does so very well, so it doesn't feel like we're just watching a cute little comedic performance. We're watching like a real human who's going through these problems, but yet is also trying to deal with it through comedy and through these little bright moments. And it's just, again, The Apartment in itself is a fantastic film, and if and you need the right actors to pull it off, because while the script is amazing, it is such a powerful comedy drama that it does need good actors. And luckily, the person who's going through all that pain and anguish is a great actress, and she can pull it off, and it does make the character believable and make you side with her, even though she does, things that you might consider overreacting, maybe.
1961. We have Audrey Hepburn for Breakfast at Tiffany's, Piper Laurie in The Hustler, the winner, Sophia Loren for Two Women, Geraldine Page in Summer and Smoke, and Natalie Wood for Splendor in the Grass. 5 great performances. My runner-up would probably be Geraldine Page. I mean, she's obviously one hell of an actress. But I agree with the winner, Sophia Loren. This is a incredibly neo-realistic movie, which was very popular in Italy at the time. And I think a lot of people viewed Sophia Loren as a sex symbol now, because obviously she didn't really have a lot of roles that challenged that. But this film, suddenly, she is this powerful dramatic actress. And you wouldn't associate someone as young as Sophia Loren to have this kind of part either. It's not she plays a mother of a teenager. I mean, she's supposed to be a young mother, but still, Sophia Loren. And you automatically think of glamour when you think of Sophia Loren. And it's so funny that, so strange that her most famous performance is not in the least bit glamorous. In this role, she does not have one glamorous moment. She is walking, running in dirt. She is constantly fighting for her daughter. It's I guess a self-sacrificing mother story, but in a completely different stance. And just so many touching moments, little moments and big moments. She has these little effective moments and this big shouting moments, like obviously when she's yelling at the soldiers, saying you bastards, throwing stuff at them. It's real. And so this is the Sophia Loren that is the legend she is.
I too am going to agree with the winner on this one. What a gut-wrenching performance. It is a sad performance. And like you said, it's this beautiful actress, Sophia Loren, that has to pull off this really uncomfortable and hard to watch dramatic performance, and she really does. And she's playing somebody a couple years, well, maybe a little more than a couple years older than her, because she was only 25. That's our age now. Now February 9th is over now, but that was our birthday, as we mentioned at the beginning. So she's my age when she filmed this, but she's playing somebody who has like a daughter who's 12. And they don't put any makeup on her, because, Sophia Loren does look like she's 25. She doesn't look like she's old enough to have this grown daughter, but I'm so glad they didn't put all this, like, old person makeup on her to make her look, 35. But it does, despite the fact that, she does look 25, she pulls it off, and you find yourself just not caring about that and not thinking about it. You just follow her through this and think, wow, thank you, Vittorio De Sica, for not making age an issue in this and just picking who could have pulled it off, because it gave us a fantastic performance, one that, you don't forget after you see it.
1962. We have the winner, Anne Bancroft, for The Miracle Worker, Betty Davis for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Katharine Hepburn for Long Day's Journey into Night, Geraldine Page for Sweet Bird of Youth, and Lee Remick for Days of Wine and Roses. I'm going to go with the winner, Anne Bancroft. The Miracle Worker is a part she's played on stage for quite a bit when this movie was made, and yet this feels completely fresh. It doesnn't feel like, just another I'm used to doing this. There is a spontaneity about her performance here that really does, and it's not stagey. You think it would be, it's not. So it really is a cinematic film. You wouldn't think it would be. And she gives a cinematic performance. She's not playing to an audience. in a theater. She's playing to a film audience. And she's completely subtle, very determined, and not necessarily always she's not a pitiful character. She could easily have been. She is not. She's a strong character that was I guess quite unique for a type of role as this is. And she also has to spend a lot of the movie dealing with Patty Duke, who's also very good, so she has to stand on her own 2 feet against another great performance, and oh boy does she. And all while being completely reserved and still being strained, you know, not going over the top. The two work off each other incredibly well, and it makes this just a fantastic movie to watch.
Yeah, good nominees this year, and it's one I see everyone online fighting between whether Katharine Hepburn or Betty Davis deserve to win this year, and I'm like, what's wrong with Amy Bancroft in The Miracle Worker? Why are we fighting? Yeah. And yeah, I would probably pick her too, and I think it's not one that requires, like, it is one that requires a lot of like dramatic moments, but it's probably like less really like you know, front and center compared to A Long Day's Journey into Night and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, because it is like she does have to give a lot of her emotion and power to her co-star Patty Duke, and she also has to go through like all the problems she goes through are dealt with, but they're also kind of subtle. Yeah. And I think she was on the stage with this part for 2 years maybe before the film version. I mean, that's a long time to be playing this, yet it doesn't seem tired, it doesn't seem rehashed, it doesn't seem hackneyed in the slightest. It seems like, oh, she's doing this part as she's going along. It doesn't seem like that she was doing it, that she hasn't memorized. It just seems like, oh, you know, we're going with, you know, we're coming up with everything as we're going along, and this is actually all happening in real time. And it's an entertaining performance to watch. It's not one that's like, it feels, because she's playing a teacher, it doesn't feel like she's lecturing people. It doesn't feel like, even though she does change people in this movie and she does have strong opinions and she is right about them because his family is weird, but it is a performance that it could have, especially considering her stage background, it could have easily been like kind of tired, and it could have been, because it requires so much spontaneity and it requires so much power without going over the top, because she does have to be like the sensible teacher. It is a entertaining and exciting performance.
1963. We have Leslie Caron in The L-Shaped Room, Shirley MacLaine in Irma la Douce, Patricia Neal in HUD, Rachel Roberts in This Sporting Life, and Natalie Wood in Love with a Proper Stranger, and Patricia Neal was the winner. I'm going to go with Natalie Wood in Love with a Proper Stranger. Again, this is a performance that requires more than one emotion, and it also requires a bit of a transformation. A bit. Must not have been an easy movie to be in. It was quite controversial in its day, and it wasn't even released on DVD for a while, which is silly because it's a wonderful movie and everybody, and it has a lot to offer. And I love this movie personally. But she has to deal with both a very, very serious situation, all while having a little bit of a charming courtship in between someone she doesn't know very well, but he knocked her up. So it's an unusual situation. It must not have been an easy performance to play, because who are you going to go off of? This wasn't done in movies. You know, you had to really be the forerunner for this. So it really has a bit of a charm to it, as well as a heartbreaking quality to it, as well as it needs. And there's a very mature and yet naive quality of Natalie Wood's performance. She's so naive and just trusting Steve McQueen, her love interest, all the way through, and yet she's also mature because it requires some maturity to be a woman in her position. So Natalie Wood definitely is just the face you would want for this type of role. It's one of her finest, which is saying something because Natalie Wood is a great actress.
I too would pick Natalie Wood for Love with the Proper Stranger this year. This is her at her best. She is fantastic in this movie, and she has to play like a real human character in this, a real person, somebody who, anybody who's going through this situation can feel at this moment. But I think that there are so many little scenes in this that stand out from her performance. For instance, her first scene in this movie, the way the movie like opens, she basically is just her telling Stephen McQueen she's pregnant, and then she realizes he doesn't even know who she is. Like, how it's not even like, she's like, I didn't expect it to mean anything to you, but I at least thought you'd remember me. And it's a really like dramatic moment, and it sets you up for this movie and their relationship and what this character's going through, and how she really is alone in this. And it's like right away it's a powerful moment, and it's a moment
something to her but not to him.
And it makes you, and it pulls you into the movie, and it pulls you into this character, because you're wondering, how did she get involved with this person, somebody who doesn't even remember her. And I feel like you'd remember Natalie Wood. But yeah, and she has many solid dramatic moments, and this isn't one of those more melodramatic movies she made in her life that do feel like, okay, this feels a little soap opera-y. This definitely is one of the better dramas she made. And a lot of its power comes from her performance, as it should.
1964, we have the winner, Julie Andrews, for Mary Poppins, Anne Bancroft for The Pumpkin Eater, Sophia Loren for Marriage Italian Style, Debbie Reynolds for The Unsinkable Molly Brown, and Kim Stanley for Seance on a Wet Afternoon. I'm going with the winner, Julie Andrews. And I've mentioned in my musical blogs before that Mary Poppins was probably our first favorite film that we can remember. This was always a part of our lives. So I guess we can't really look at Julie Andrews' performance with a fresh perspective necessarily, but isn't that the point? It's something that children can look at and remember for years to come, that can charm children and adults alike, that really just makes you sit back and have a grand old time watching this film. It's everything you want from a Disney movie, this film. And Julie Andrews just signifies the quality, the fun, just everything you associate with a Disney classic. And I think that Julie Andrews is at her best here. It's just a incredibly, incredibly delightful film. It's completely charming. She isn't just she's not like silly. She has her moments of being strict. I mean, not like strict, but she has her moments of being an authority figure while also being fun. So it's just a completely new spin on, I guess, sort of the nanny character.
I too am going to pick Julie Andrews for Mary Poppins. Again, it's kind of unfair because for as long as I've had a memory, I've had this movie in there, because can't even remember a point in time when this movie wasn't a part of my life. There are old movies of us watching this, that I don't even, from like 1-2 years old. I don't even remember that time. I have a really good memory, but I don't remember that. But it was such a part of our lives, and it's one of those performances that when I look at now, I can really appreciate for how good it is. Because as a kid, it sold me, and now it sells me too. But in a way, I can appreciate from a different light, because I love the way that she plays it completely straight. She doesn't just say, there's not a point where she does a tongue-in-cheek where, oh, isn't this ridiculous how I'm actually talking to a dog, and know somebody who laughs when he floats to the ceiling. No, she's like, this is like, another Tuesday for her. Like, oh yeah, I always deal with this stuff. Like, oh, he's on the ceiling again? Oh, darn, alright. Oh, the dog's talking to me, okay. And I love that. And because, of course it would be like that for her, and it makes the character even more interesting, because you're like, oh wait, her life is actually like this? I want to be part of that life. I want to follow her forever. And it's so much fun. And it's the type of performance that never gets boring, and no matter how many times you see it, you are as delighted by it as you were the first time you saw it. It's that enjoyable, and I think performances like that don't get a lot of notice, at least from the award ceremony. Obviously, fans of movies love them, but from award ceremonies, they don't notice them. So the fact that they actually took the time to notice one, and one of the best ones, is something really remarkable, and I'm glad they did, because, I mean, who doesn't love it?
And I'm glad it was this one.
Yes, me too.
Okay, 1965, the last year. We have Julie Andrews for The Sound of Music. The winner, Julie Christie for Darling. Samantha Agar for The Collector. Elizabeth Hartman for A Patch of Blue. And Simone Signori for Ship of Fools. Vivian Lee wasn't nominated for Ship of Fools, or else we'd have a shoe-in. But, so I'm gonna go with Elizabeth Hartman in A Patch of Blue. This is, an excellent film. Excellent on all accounts of telling a love story, an unconventional love story between a blind girl and an African-American man. She doesn't realize he's African-American. I guess only in 1965, I guess, but it's what you would want from a time capsule, one that teaches intolerance. And yeah, tolerance. Oh my god, what was I thinking? It's
thinking of the movie.
Yeah, intolerance. It's late. Well, this is an incredibly touching performance. Again, she's like Arthur Kenny. She's blind. She can't act with her eyes here, which is I guess automatically a handicap, because naturally actors would have to act with their eyes. But she does have such sensitivity with her body language. You feel so awkward for this girl. She knows nothing of the outside world. Like, even when she's just sitting under a tree at one point, you could tell how uncomfortable she is. So, and how many people can do that without showing their eyes? I mean, just the way she sits there, playing with the beads. And there are these moments where she pictures what it'd be like if she could see. So there are just a lot of little moments like that that really make this performance. And this movie's good because both she and Sidney Poitier are good. They both have great chemistry. And in Virginia Lakes, I mentioned Sidney Poitier. And so I think this is really a great film from this year. And any year, really.
Yeah, you said we don't have a shoe in this year. I think we do. I think it's the winner, Julie Christie, for Darling. It's, first of all, the character is a complicated character, because she has to be somebody. I get you can compare her to Scarlett O'Hara even, because she's selfish. She puts her needs over everyone else's. She uses people, and yet you feel bad for her. At the end of the day, I found myself feeling bad for her, because I mean, when her life is meaningless at the end of everything, and when she goes through everything she does, I wasn't feeling like, oh, well, that's what you deserve, bitch. I was like, well, that seems awful. I feel bad. Even though she hurt Dirk Bogarde to get there, and I love him, but it is such a complicated performance. I feel like other actresses I would have felt like, oh, well, that's what you deserve, but because Julie Christie has such sincerity in, like, everything she does, and she's so,
Oh yeah, I love Julie Christie.
Yeah, she's so, good at just playing a character and being believable, that I think it makes, it does make her seem human, even though she is selfish and she does these awful things. And the movie is about her, juggling men to get what she wants, how she has very serious relationships with both Dirk Bogarde and Lawrence Harvey, and she has Dirk Bogarde divorce his wife to be with him, but then she cheats on him with Lawrence Harvey because, well, why not? And yeah, so it's a very interesting character, and it's one that could have easily the film couldn't have worked because you would have been like, well, you know, she's an awful character. I don't want to follow her. But like Scarlett O'Hara, there's something about her, even though she's granted this character is, while Scarlett had more redeeming qualities than this character does, there's something about her that does make you stick with her, and it does make you, in the end of the day, feel bad. And the fact that even Dirk Bogart's character at the end is able to somewhat pity her because he does feel bad about, you know, and at the end of the day seeing her leave. But yeah, you know, what can he do? She made her bed and she's gonna lie in it, and yeah, she deserves it, but that doesn't mean you can't feel bad too. Alright, speaking of which, anything else you want to say first?
No.
Okay, so it seemed like you wanted to say something because you're like looking at me.
No.
Okay, well, speaking of Darling, for movies this weekend that you can watch on TCM, I have 2 recommendations. One being Darling, which is playing Saturday, and the other being Wilson, which is playing Sunday. Both great because they're doing 31 Days of Oscar. Both great Oscar-winning movies that you should definitely catch if you haven't. Always rewatching them is good.
Yeah, and I don't have any, like last time. But if you watch Darling and Wilson, you get to see 2 performances that Virginia picked to win. Mm-hmm. And I picked Alexander Knox for Wilson too, so see what we think should have won.
Yeah, and you can disagree with us and you would be wrong, but that's okay. No, that's alright.
We don't mind.
Nope. As long as you have an opinion, it's better than nothing.
As long as it's another old actor, I'm fine. When it comes to modern actors, I'm like, really? Okay.
Alright, so next week we're going to be doing, I assume, Best Supporting Actor.
Yes. We are.
Alright, and then after that we'll do Best Supporting Actress, and then we might do...
We're going to do Best Picture.
We'll do a special Best Picture, even though we'll be after Oscar month at that point. We feel we should do it, but we do want to give individual week to each acting category. Okay, so...
It's very important to us because we love the actors.
Yes, absolutely, and we love the film, so we definitely want to give that its own time.
Of course.
But that's going to be the hardest one to pick.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's it for this week. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.